Men spill the shocking reasons they turned down hot girls. Because she'd only create more problems than I already had. I was in your place once. We made the right choice. Well, she may have been hot, but her soul was a garbage can where all things went to die. Because being pretty can only get you so far. Personalities are what keeps it going. Because I was into the slightly less pretty girl who I was also friends with and who actually seemed to care about me other than for physical reasons. She didn't believe in the atrocities of the Third Reich. It's a shame, she was mad cute too. I accidentally turned down a girl I had a massive crush on in middle school. I'd convinced myself that she was the one I was going to end up with and to marry. Turns out she actually liked me back, and her brother would literally walk past me at school and yell, "Hey, my sister likes you!" But I just assumed he was trolling me or something. Well, one day we were on the train home after school and her friends suddenly and mysteriously disappeared to another carriage, leaving her and I alone together. She asked, "Hey, I was wondering, do you have a crush on me?" as she leaned in hopefully for my answer. And how did I react to this situation? Well, I started rummaging through my school backpack, pretending I was looking for something, and changed the subject to some dumb thing that my brother did on the weekend. She leaned back in her seat and looked visibly disappointed. Now, why did I do this, you ask? Well, I'd heard the statistics of how unlikely relationships were to last if they started at our age, so I told myself that we weren't ready yet. My plan was to wait 5 more years until after we'd left school before I made my move, because then it would last, I told myself. Of course, I waited so long that she eventually lost interest and we drifted away. Yeah, teenage me had some strange ideas about love and relationships. When I was in high school, my best friend was a girl who I had a massive crush on and who clearly had one on me as well. But teenage me was the type to have a new girlfriend every couple of months, and I didn't want to turn my best friend into another ex-girlfriend. We're 30 now, we've been dating for a year and a half, and plan on getting married next year. Well, it's early in the video and I'm already surprised by this angle that I didn't see coming. Turning away gorgeous girls not because of their monster personalities, but because your brains couldn't deal with the possibility of things being different than they imagined. Interesting. Because the first words out of her mouth were, "Oh, I smell angel dust on you." I was in fact not carrying at the time. In college, I didn't make a move on a former homecoming queen who is now a Broadway actress despite her putting overt moves on me first. I'd like to say it's because I had my eyes set on the quirky, artistic girl instead. And it's true, I did choose to date that quirky art girl right afterwards, but that wasn't the main reason. I'd like to say it was because I found out the only reason she put the moves on me at all was because I'm a dead ringer for her ex-boyfriend. That was true as well, but also not the main reason I said no. The reason I didn't reciprocate her moves was because I was just a complete chicken and terrified, and she was and is still so far out of my league that I'd need an Amtrak ticket to get within a point. Sometimes it is like that. I'd like the record to show that she is a delightful person, and the whole "I look like her ex" angle, while a bit weird, wasn't really an indication of anything beyond her having a type, I suspect. Now she's with this totally cut actor dude. I'm not a totally cut actor dude. I have a belly and tattoos and a mustache. Your job is not all that hard. All you do is carry food. I apologized to the waitress, paid, and left my date there. I don't even care about the embarrassment she caused by being so loud. My thinking was that if she does this to one person, she does it to everyone. Last thing I need in my life is toxicity. I had a huge crush on this girl in high school. Tried hanging out with her for close to a year, always hoping that she'd see me as something more than just a friend. And when that didn't really work out, I decided to just go for it and ask her to prom. She didn't say yes right away, but she did say yes eventually. I quickly figured out that she was going to prom because she was excited to go to prom, not because she wanted to go with me. I sort of lost interest after that, and I started dating another girl. Interestingly enough, it was a girl that I danced with on that prom who told me that while we were dancing that she really liked me. Her and I dated for a while and had a lot of fun. The other girl, the one that I'd started off with a big crush on and took to prom, got back in touch with me after I broke up with that actual girlfriend. Apparently she was kind of jealous that I was dating another girl and not giving her attention anymore. She started calling me all the time again and wanted to possibly start dating, but I'd already gotten over her, so nothing happened. When I was in high school, one of the hottest girls jumped into my arms, kissed me, and asked me to be her boyfriend. I thought that was a joke and I said no. I rejected her because I was an oblivious idiot. To all of the teens that might be reading this, shoot your shot. If a girl or boy you like is paying attention to you and you catch a vibe, stop thinking and just go for it. I grew up in a summer resort town, and a girl my age would spend summers at a cottage in my neighborhood. She always had a boyfriend, like since she was about 12, because she was an absolutely beautiful girl. We got along well in our teens and into college, but I wouldn't say we had a flirty friendship or anything like that. I just always sort of felt like she was out of my league, and also me and my brothers were good friends with her other siblings and cousins. The summer before my senior year in college, in the mid-90s, her and I met up for drinks with a few other people from our neighborhood. She casually mentions that she's broken up with her boyfriend a few weeks before, but I didn't think anything of that. I noticed she kept cozying up to me and eventually asked me to walk her home. We made out and she told me that she always liked me, and then we started dating just before going back to college. After like 3 times together, I realized that I'd never really been alone with her and that she had the personality of an 8-year-old. Constant baby talk, and she only watched cartoons and the Disney Channel. She was incredibly awkward around my adult friends, like non-functional in conversations. We had absolutely no common interests whatsoever. We couldn't even go to the movies together because she had trouble with anything above a PG rating. We ended up dating for about 5 months, but I just couldn't take it anymore. Some of my friends still give me a hard time for dumping the hottest girl I've ever seen, but we all have our limits, I suppose. In short, ended up dating a lifelong crush in my early 20s, and it felt a lot like babysitting, so I dumped her. Never meet your heroes. Well, I turned her down because I figured my husband would probably disapprove. Another pretty girl beat her to it by several years, and that first pretty girl became my wife. Well, I've dated a few gorgeous women in the past. Some lacked the personality, the rest verged on psychosis, literally picking fights if I talked to another female kind of gals. After a few of those, I quit dating. Done. No hookups, no blind dates, nothing. And then I met my wife. I was instantly, overwhelmingly attracted to her, and I was terrified of how I felt about her. I spent the first year waiting for the other shoe to drop, and long story short, we've been together 10 years, married for 8.5. She's my better half, my best friend, and just the right amount of crazy to compliment me. She's perfect. Guys, I took this topic because I felt like maybe it would be a bit of a rebuff after taking one where women talk about some of the worst guys to ask them out on a date, but all of you are out there humble bragging about the choices you made in your eventual life partners, or even worse, being thankful for what you have. Absolutely disgusting behavior. Take your hot, delightful partners and get out of my sight. I'm going to go with the opposite of everyone else here. She was perfect. Beautiful, fun, funny, loving, interesting, motivated, supportive, successful. Maybe not perfect, but her imperfections made her even more lovable. How obsessive she'd get over little things, her temper when defending me, her stubbornness in switching our meals at a restaurant if mine looked better. She taught me that even a 10 out of 10 woman is still a human being with all of the same insecurities and idiosyncrasies as everyone else. It wasn't her that was the problem. It was me. The problem is that I learned that relationships just aren't for me. I had everything you could ask for, and no matter how much I lied to myself and tried to adapt and change and fit the mold, I just couldn't be happy. Not because she was asking me to, or wanted me to, or forcing me to, far from it, but because I was struggling to give her what she deserved. I was so unhappy and more miserable by the day. The breaking point was when I realized I was changing her. She was adapting to suit me and becoming someone who wasn't happy either, and changing into someone she wasn't. And I realized that that wasn't fair. She deserved better. I also realized this was a streak with me. All the girls I'd see and date would come back to this point for me. And when I finally accepted the idea that I don't ever want to be married or have kids, it felt like a huge rock lifted off my chest and I could finally breathe. My future feels like a blue sky mountain air, free and bright. I know society teaches you that being single means you're a loser, and that love and togetherness are where the heartbeat of life is, and that loneliness is normal. But I've stopped accepting that bullcrap as the only way to be happy or fulfilled or successful. I never feel lonely, ever. I have lots of relationships with friends and family, and I have more than enough love to go around. And more than I deserve, frankly. And I feel like I've succeeded because I have what so few get. I understand what makes me happy. I think she's moved on now, and instead of being jealous or upset, I couldn't be happier for her. Because I loved that girl and I want her to be happy, and I'm happy she's in a relationship that accepts her as she is and fulfills her needs. And I love being single. I feel like I'm so fortunate to be a person who's perfectly happy in his own company and never tires of it, and I don't think I ever will. Let me tell you about the girl I dated before I met my wife. We dated for 2 years. She was smoking hot and we had some similar interests, so it kind of clicked. She loved me. She wanted to be with me all of the time. She wanted to keep other people away from me. I slowly drifted away from my circle of friends as she preferred to stay in rather than go out. For reasons I'll never understand, she was constantly worried that my best friend's girlfriends were interested in me. And they weren't, believe me. She thought my male friends were shallow. So over time, my wide circle of friends became a dot of only her. She did not like my family at all. She thought they were always judging her and somehow scheming various things secretly behind her back. They were not. In the end, I chose my friends and family over her, because they're a part of who I am, and if she couldn't accept them, how could she love the person I really am? You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Genius? Oh, I was at a party and a couple of my friends were trying to hook me up with a newly divorced friend of theirs. We were hanging out, chatting, and just getting along well. Even my friend would walk by and make a thumbs up. Then she started talking about how she didn't get her kid vaccinated, because a lot of people didn't realize how bad they were, and humans have lived for centuries without vaccines. I noped the F out of that conversation, and I never looked back. I dated a gorgeous, perfect 10 kind of girl for a few months, and then broke it off. The problem was that she had no personality and no sense of humor. I'm afraid she might not have been very smart. Either that or she believed that the man should take control of every situation and make every decision. It got very frustrating having conversations like, where do you want to eat? I don't care. Wherever you pick is fine. What should we do this weekend? Oh, whatever you want to do is okay with me. What kind of music do you like? Oh, I'm not picky. She'd laugh at all of my jokes, but I don't think she got any of them. She'd laugh the same laugh every single time, no matter what kind of joke it was. And I know some of my jokes were funny, damn it. And she was a cold fish in the bedroom. She never showed any preference for anything in particular. I had to make all of the moves, every single time, and she'd just kind of lie there. That made me second-guess myself. Is it me? Am I missing something? I think I know what I'm doing. My partners have always had fun before, so I eventually broke it off. It was just no fun anymore. Yes, she was very beautiful, but she was boring. Or maybe it was me. Maybe I was wrong for her, but I could never find out if she was happy or not, so I just gave up. My friends thought I was insane for breaking it off with her. I didn't go into any details why, because I didn't want to talk badly about her. So I just said it didn't work out and left it at that. When I broke up with her, she smiled the same smile she always smiled and said, okay. And that was that. I found out months later from one of her girlfriends that she was heartbroken over it. Heartbroken. I wanted to bash my head into a wall. How was I supposed to know she even cared? She never showed any emotion or anything. I felt terrible about breaking her heart, but she never gave me a single clue that she cared about anything. You've got to give me something to work with. Communication is important, kids. Oof. I have had brief relationships like this. Even if the person is beautiful and perfectly nice, you do really need some sort of spark of personality or direction or agency. Knowing what makes them happy and being able to do that and seeing how they react, and seeing what they do for you and the people they care about. It's actually a wonderful thing, and I wouldn't want to go back to a relationship without it. I really hope this person got better at advocating for herself and she worked on whatever pain was preventing her from doing so, because she doesn't seem like a bad person and she deserves to be happy. Ooh, I've rejected many hot girls. Tinder is a maelstrom of crazy crap for sure. It blows my mind at how many people seem to outright expect me to have low self-esteem. If I get the sense that they feel they're doing me a favor by simply being there isn't going to be a second date. If you're rude to wait staff, there isn't going to be a second date. If you have the personality of a wet turkey sandwich, there is not going to be a second date. If you're always on your phone, there isn't going to be a second date, and if you play hard to get, as soon as I pick up on it, I'm gone. The thing that bothers me most is that all of these games are so remarkably common, and it has me really discouraged that I'm ever going to find someone up to my standards, which aren't steep in my opinion. Whenever I tell them it isn't working out, I more often than not get something along the lines of, you're not cute enough to be this stuck up. I mean, I'm a guy, so yeah, I get it, rejection sucks, and I'll let them get a jab in to deal with it. But honey, I'm 30. I'm not looking for a hookup. Being pretty isn't enough anymore. I'm looking for someone to share a few more adventures with before I'm old. I want someone to put effort into it and actually take interest in my passions and goals. I want a partner, not someone that thinks they're a trophy. Dating is a nightmare. She was tapped. Despite being gorgeous, she was a frickin' psycho. A nice psycho sometimes where she'd do anything for me, but a psycho nonetheless. She misunderstood I like to read as I'm wealthy and tried asking for expensive things. I'm a man, not a wallet. I turned down this opportunity because she was so drunk that it would have been the unspeakable act. No thanks. and don't feel offended that I didn't want to in that circumstance. I didn't turn mine down. She told me during our bedroom times that she wanted to cheat on me with my best friend, and then she left and did just that. I lost 2 friends. Pretty doesn't mean anything. First date, she spent the entire time gossiping about a bunch of people, including a good friend of mine. During the course of one date, she went from the hottest girl in my mind to a slightly repulsive girl. I'm not sure if that counts as rejecting, but I avoided her like the plague after that. She certainly seemed into me, but I wasn't interested. Because I was too afraid to say yes when she asked me to dance. Just a pretty girl in a bar who saw me standing against the wall by myself and invited me onto the floor with her hips. Too nervous about looking like a fool dancing to accept. Stupid. But in the interim, I met my new wife, who's way hotter in my opinion, and we just had a baby, so things worked out okay. Being pretty is not everything. Not being a toxic B-word is more important. Her personality was rotten. My friends thought I was crazy that I didn't go there at least once, since I could have easily. But I was raised better than that. She gets taken advantage of enough from the rest of the world. I don't want to give her any hope. Shame how someone's childhood can destroy a person, even if they're gorgeous. I'm a lesbian, and I've rejected pretty girls for the following reasons. She was straight but curious, and I'm just sick of that crap. She was bat-crap crazy. She was shy. She wanted me to pretend that I was a bimbo, and that was an instant turn-off. Polyamory drama. She smoked, and I'm allergic. Too far outside my age range or didn't have anything in common, and my current partner is way better than any of them, and I don't feel the need for anyone extra. We were friends. I liked her, asked her out, got rejected. A year or so of puberty later, apparently I was now handsome and she asked me out. But in the interim, I'd figured out that she was lazy, moochy, all take and no give, and her family was way too religious. So I ended up shaking my head and saying, I don't think that's for the best. Flash forward 10 years, the most recent conversation I had with her, she tried to convince me to pay her $50 in exchange for going south of the border on me. Last I heard, she was having issues with substances. Mostly, it just makes me sad. We were complete opposites. I was a reserved person and she was an extrovert. I felt like I wouldn't value her choices. Well, in a way I did, but I never told her. Mind you, we were good friends. This was almost 11 years ago. The last girl before my wife, we broke up because I was a cuddler and she was not. Completely understandable, and there was no acrimony on either side. But physical contact is one of my love languages, and it's very important to me. Because she had a boyfriend. Also because of self-esteem. But mostly the boyfriend. You ever meet an extremely attractive person who is just an awful human being as a whole? That's why. After about 10 minutes of talking, you realize red flags are for your comrades, not your dates. She had too many horses. I had a thing for this girl for a long time. We had a lot of fun, we enjoyed each other's company, got along, and we were friends for a while before we got together. There was a period of time where we weren't around each other for about a year or so. We got together shortly after this period, and we started going out. We went on a date and we were talking about things. She told me that during that year or so where we weren't around that she'd picked up smoking. I remember feeling so let down and disappointed. It was a major turn-off for me. I had a thing for her for 10 years at least. Some might think it's shallow, but smoking is just something I can't stand. I tried for a while to deal with it, but to me it was something that was constantly in my mind and I couldn't get over. You know, it would have to be the match of a lifetime for me to be okay with a smoker. And for the life of me, I can't really explain why that would be just as much of a deal breaker for me as a horrible personality. I guess I just don't like the smell and taste. That and the looming prospect of early death and your partner being prone to horrible illnesses earlier on in life. She had no personality whatsoever. If you were trying to get to know her, she'd be immature and laugh off the question. And she was dull in texts and on dates. It was like I was talking to a brick wall. If a girl doesn't have a personality, don't date her, fellows. She was only with me because she couldn't get someone else. Great way to start the school year, am I right? I did end up rejecting someone who asked me out, and it was because on their Facebook, they had a photo of themselves in front of the Confederate flag. That immediately concerned me very much, and I couldn't say yes to someone who'd willingly do that. Have a nice day. Mind-numbingly stupid. I had to explain everything like she was in kindergarten. I was already spoken for, and she was dating my best friend. I didn't like her personality to begin with. I've turned down maybe a dozen pretty girls for one reason or another. Just because a girl's hot, it doesn't mean you throw your normal rules out the window for them. It could be for a lot of reasons, but mostly if my life is going to be worse off with her than without, like the stress of dealing with games or other bullcrap, then it's a no-brainer for me. I don't need to deal with more bullcrap in my life without getting paid for it. What was your best moment of, "Oh, I'm actually the bad guy here"? I used to work security at a college bar, and we would typically ask people to leave who were too intoxicated. One night I was posted up in the DJ booth because it was our normal shoulder-to-shoulder level of busy, and I watched this guy start stumbling and drinking his beer in a really weird way. I make my way over to him and tell him he has to leave because he's too drunk. He tries to tell me something, but I can't understand what he said because the music is so loud and he was slurring his words. We get outside and he tells me that he has cerebral palsy, which was pretty obvious after the fact. He was cool about it and I let him back in, but I don't think I've ever felt like a bigger jerk than that night. I have a buddy who has muscular dystrophy. Once, while in the liquor store, he had a bout of paralysis and collapsed. The reaction from everyone in there was along the lines of, "Oh great, another drunk," until he told them he has muscular dystrophy and physically can't get up. He said it was kind of funny watching them to all scramble to help him after that. You know when you get in an argument with someone and you come up with the perfect solution for the situation after the fact? About 2/3 of the trains I get on from Dublin to Cork, someone is sitting in a pre-booked seat that doesn't belong to them, whether it's mine or another person. And these people have all been cantankerous old geezers who have no desire whatsoever to shift themselves from a seat they didn't reserve. I had a man who was probably in his 80s stand up to his full height, a foot shorter than me, and bellow in my face that he didn't care that I booked the seat. He wasn't moving, while his shrew wife looked on with an air of proprietorial approval. It's pretty rotten. Finally, however, last month I boarded a train and someone was sitting in my seat with his partner, and I was just the right combination of tired and stressed to let him have it. I'd been waiting for months for my moment. I showed him my ticket, told them it was my seat, and insisted they move. I channeled Seinfeld for the first and hopefully last time in my life, and finally stormed off up the train when they continued to sit in my seat, full of righteous vindication that I was going to get my way. Finally, I was going to get one over on the train. No longer shall I back down to the whims of rude commuters. Now it is they who shall yield to the righteous powers of reservation. I went up to the staff cabin, asked for an administrator, told him the situation, and presented him with my ticket. This was met with, I see the problem here, sir. You've reserved a seat on the 6 o'clock train. This is the 4 o'clock train. I'd booked the ticket for 6 p.m. and become mixed up with the 6 in the 1600 or 4 p.m. train. I was mortified. I meekly took a seat near the opposite end of the train and didn't say a word to anyone else for the next 3 hours. In my quest to defeat the rude commuter, I had become what I hated most. The narrator, a mostly very diplomatic person, also feels like the 1 or 2 times he's decided to stand up for himself in his life, he has completely misjudged the situation and looked like a complete moron. Ah well. Pulled out of the gas station and this butthole was riding my bumper, honking his horn and waving and pointing. I pulled over, throwing my arms up ready for the altercation because I'd done nothing wrong. Turns out I drove off without closing my gas cap. Wasn't really such a big deal for how he was acting, but he was just trying to help. I apologized and thanked him. In high school, there was a kid who I unwittingly bullied. I actually thought he was a cool guy, and my friend group and I roughhoused a lot. Headlocks, finger circle game, dead legs, etc. I was just doing what I did with everyone I get along with. One day I came up behind him and did that thing where you kick someone's back leg into their front leg while they're walking and they trip on their feet. He turned around with fear and anger in his eyes and yelled, "Why do you have to be such a jerk to me all the time?" My heart sank to my feet. I didn't realize that what I saw as friendly bonding play he found really intimidating. We talked it out and I spent the rest of my high school days being really nice to him. The weirdest part is that he was a pretty popular kid, not small by any means, and on a couple of different sports teams. Goes to show, anybody can feel bullied. I have a coworker who jokes around with nearly every coworker. But not me. A few years ago, I was tired and in a bad mood and trying to clock in. She was joking around with me and trying to keep me from clocking in. I thought she herself was just taking a really long time to clock in, but I lost my temper and I yelled, "Will you hurry up already?" She's never joked around with me or even been that friendly with me since. Realizing that the reason my partner and I are always fighting is because I'm always picking fights. I'm still working on trying to fix this. I was at a restaurant doing a coworker dinner thing when I noticed the woman at the next table was staring me down, like barely blinking, full-blown eye contact. After a while, I started getting pretty agitated when my subtle social cues to stop staring at me went wholly ignored. After about 20 minutes of this, I'd had enough of this lady's unsolicited rudeness, and I did the whole "come at me, bro," arms in the air move, thinking that surely that would get my point across. I made a fairly big production of it. Only then did I realize that this lady was completely blind. When my sister was 13 and I was about 10, we were in a food court at the mall. A gentleman wearing a black suit and dark glasses was seated next to us. My sister looks at him, back to me, and says, "Hey, I think that guy's in the FBI or something." I was like, "He's blind," and the blind guy tried to suppress a smile. Went to a friend of a friend's house to chill out. He was a nice kid, but his house was crazy dirty. Dishes stacked to the ceiling, laundry strewn like carpet, old takeout food bags from a ton of places everywhere. Bags of garbage just lying in piles in the kitchen. The place stunk to high heaven, and I had trouble getting comfortable. Later, I commented on how dirty the place was to my friend. Turns out the guy's mum was terminally ill, and the guy had to help take care of her and his younger sibling, all while being a typical teenage boy. I felt bad for judging him. 2 weeks ago, I was dropping someone off at Union Station. As I was exiting the parking lot, there was one of those gate things where you insert your ticket. I inserted my ticket and the person behind me began honking. The gate was literally in the process of lifting up. I laid on the horn screaming, "Okay, I'm going!" But they kept honking anyway. I hit the accelerator and zoomed off, flicking them off for good measure in a very obvious way. I drive a convertible so I can put my hand right out the top. I was furious at them for honking for me to go when it was clear that I couldn't go any faster. I exited and turned left. A few moments later, that same car exited and also turned left and pulled up to me. They put down their window and I put mine down. Yes, everyone, you can have windows up while in a convertible. It reduces the effect of the wind. And I was like, "What the frick do you want, huh?" The lady in the other car said, "You left your coffee mug on the back of your car." She wasn't even mad. I was totally shocked. I looked behind me and sure enough, I'd set my tumbler on top of the trunk and she had been honking to try and let me know. I turned red, burst out laughing and told her I was so sorry for being such a jerk. I pulled over and got my cup. I couldn't believe what a butthole I'd been and how coolly she responded to the whole thing. This was my mum's moment. She was driving me and my brother home from the store when we were young, when she drove through an intersection screaming, "You've got a stop sign, lady," out the window at a person that she nearly hit. 10 seconds later, my mother realized that she was in fact the one who blew through a stop sign. All she did was, "Oh." Like any good kids, we still to this day yell, "You've got a stop sign, lady," at her. I was driving home one day and a person in the car next to mine waved at me. I went to wave back, and my hand instinctively flipped the other person off instead. Holy crap, you're like a reverse Mr. Bean. Mr. Mean. Used to think it was funny to quote Dodgeball and say, "You're adopted, your real parents don't even love you." I wish I could say that I learned my lesson the first time when I said this to someone who responded with, "Actually, I am adopted." I won that particular lottery twice. The narrator has been witness to not one, but 2 yo mama jokes, in which the recipient turned out to have lost said parental figure recently. It just feels like tempting fate to use any sort of parent-related joke these days. It was the moment I realized that I was in fact responsible for everything I did while mentally unstable. I spent years alienating everyone I knew by demanding that they forgive my crappy behavior because it wasn't me, it was my bipolar disorder. Everyone else was the bad guy because they just didn't understand my illness. I was the victim. One day it just kind of clicked. No matter what the cause, I was the one who was hurting the people around me. It wasn't on them to understand and forgive my endless parade of insanity. It was on me to get help and stop being so toxic to everyone around me. It was that epiphany that really helped me turn the corner. While I'd sought help before, it was always with the mindset that I had no responsibility and therefore no control over my illness. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Dang, this kid that we called Dino Kid because he always acted like a dinosaur at recess. We'd chase him around and poke fun all the time. Nothing big ever happened, but once we, as a class, were educated on ASD, everyone accepted the guy so quickly. The guy was so damn good at Guitar Hero. My fiancé is a 34-year-old man who sometimes, almost every day, acts like a T-Rex stalking me. It's adorable and I love it, but sometimes he gets really self-conscious because he's afraid I'm going to make fun of him for it. I've never in over 3 years together. I think he has dino PTSD. So, one time I was in a high school assembly and a bunch of kids in pajamas started walking into the auditorium. Pajamas were against the school's dress code. Me, thinking I was funny, yelled, "Hey, that's against the dress code." Turns out it was the special ed class. I really felt like a jackass. I couldn't make myself small enough in that crowd. I thought I was saving someone from a bad marriage. I realized I was just convincing them to cheat on their husband. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. It wasn't me, but it was amazing to see. I was at Starbucks sitting outside along with a number of other people. A gym rat-looking guy starts drawing attention to himself and pointing at people saying, "Is that white Chevy over there your car?" After a couple of these outbursts, a guy sitting near me says, "Yeah, that's my car." The gym rat righteously said, "You're a royal jerk for parking in a handicapped spot. How can you be so selfish when someone who needs that spot might show up at any time? For all you know, he already drove through the parking lot, couldn't find the space, and he headed back home empty-handed. Blah, blah, blah." The car owner, "I'm sorry, I'm handicapped. I forgot to hang the tag when I left the car." The gym rat, "Oh, really?" At this point, the car owner, who had been sitting down and showed no signs of handicap, stands up. The guy is basically bent in half, like his spine is fused in a 90-degree angle. He looked perfectly normal sitting down. Okay, I'll go to the car and hang the tag." The gym rat, upon seeing him stand, sorry, you don't have to do that." The car owner slowly and uncomfortably walks the 40 feet to his car, opens the door, fumbles to hang the tag, and then ambles his way back to the seat, rigidly bent the entire time. When I was in grade school, I had a serious problem keeping my mouth shut. Basically, if a thought popped into my head, I was freaking saying it. The teachers didn't exactly appreciate the constant blurting out, but one time I really crossed the line because I made fun of a perfectly sweet girl just because her mum smoked. F you, former self. I was already a problem child, and while I wasn't technically expelled, I did have to leave and go to a different school. So yeah, basically expelled, but off the record. What's worse is that it took about 2 years of sulking for me to finally realize that I had it coming. Every bit of it. Gosh, I can't believe how much of a craphead I was. I was a freshman in high school. I don't know why it occurred to me, but I figured that if you rubbed the little cage that held your books under the desk the right way, it would resonate and make this loud humming sound. I'd sit there and wait for the teacher to turn her back and start. She'd turn around and look at the air conditioner vent that was right above me. Of course, when she did, I would stop. She'd look bewildered and then turn back around. Of course, I would start up again. Being the quiet kid, no one in the class suspected me. It was hilarious. Until they closed the classroom down for a couple of days because they had concerns about the air conditioners malfunctioning. When I was 10 or so, a friend of mine got appendicitis, so the teacher asked us to write letters of support to her. Little me thought I could troll her in the same way I could do in the internet, which isn't even justified online, by the way. So I wrote an entire letter joking about her condition, wishing it got worse, and saying in the end that it's all a joke and I wish she got well. The teacher came to class mad and disappointed, and proceeded to read my letter without saying my name. I instantly knew I'd messed up, and I never did it again. Never did it again? How often do your friends get appendicitis? Actually, last year I got appendicitis and my friends didn't write prank letters. Oh no. They visited me at the hospital and told me the most effed up jokes so that when I laughed, my abdominals hurt like a B word after the surgery. Let's just say I got what I deserved. I would say that this seems like a banter thing that the teacher might have misinterpreted, but then again, not many 10-year-olds can pull off that level of dark humor. I know that it's the kind of thing I'd write to certain friends if they were in hospital. I was the assistant manager of a fast food place in college. A bunch of punk rocker-looking guys my age came in to eat, around the same time as some soccer mums with little kids. One of the punk rock kids was pretty intimidating, easily a foot taller than me and built like an athlete. They were all perfectly nice when they ordered their food, but once they got their cups to fill up their drinks, the big guy started screaming and cursing at the top of his lungs, "Mother fricking pig fricker son of a B-word!" The mums all looked horrified. I'm normally quite averse to conflict, so I was quite proud of myself when I marched around the counter and got right up in this big dude's face. I looked him straight in the eye and told him that if he had a problem acting like a human being, he needed to get out of my restaurant. He looked back at me and almost started crying. He whispered, "I'm sorry," and turned around and walked away. He looked absolutely destroyed and his friends followed him trying to console him. Either that guy legitimately had Tourette's, or the whole group of them was pulling a prank and were absolutely the best actors I've ever seen. Oh gosh, I still feel bad whenever I think about this. So about a year ago, I was on a long international plane flight. I always book the aisle seat because I have a GI disorder that means I sometimes have to get to the bathroom with very little notice. So being trapped in the middle or window seat is suboptimal. I get all seated for my flight, which is the second leg of probably 12 or more hours of travel, and I'm so exhausted I start to nod off before boarding is even finished. I'm awakened by a man politely asking if he can have my seat. Groggily, I explain that no, sorry, I set this up this way because of an illness I have, and I get up so that he can have the window seat. It was a small flight, so no middle seat at least. The nerve of some people, right? If you wanted the aisle seat, why didn't you just choose it beforehand, random dude? The world doesn't revolve around you. Well, about 3 hours into my flight, I woke up again, feeling slightly more human, and I end up having a conversation with my roommate. And within about 5 minutes, I discovered that no, he wasn't asking to switch seats, he was telling me that I was in his seat. Apparently, the airline had switched who was seated where so that he could be closer to his wife and daughter, who was sitting across the aisle. I hadn't looked at my electric boarding pass since going through security, so I didn't notice the change. I apologized profusely and offered to switch immediately, but the poor guy just said it was okay and declined. Ugh. I should probably mention that I'm a short, baby-faced girl, which probably made it worse as this middle-aged guy clearly had no idea what to do about a small, early 20-something girl who looks more like a 12-year-old than anything, telling him he couldn't have his assigned seat. Honestly, that dad might have secretly loved having some personal time. Yep, because of that inconsiderate chick in the aisle seat, I had to do nothing but watch a movie, read a book, and nap for the whole 12-hour flight. Sorry, honey. I've flown a lot with our daughter, sometimes alone and sometimes with my wife. That's not a lot of difference in my opinion, as the main difficulty is just the endless activity and interruptions. It's not difficult as much as relentless. If the kid is in between the parents, neither of them gets much rest. Now, if the poor mom was stuck with 2 kids, then you truly are a monster. In middle school, I pulled some really creepy stuff on a guy I liked, as in an insane amount of physical stalking. I memorized his schedule only through following him everywhere, and I always appeared in the same place he was. I took one of his belongings that he forgot somewhere and took an assignment of his that was posted on the class corkboard because I just wanted his stuff. At the time, it didn't even occur to me that what I was doing was messed up. All I thought about was, how can I be around this person without having to interact with him? It's been over half a decade since then. If I did any of the crap I did as an adult, I would have been arrested with at least a few restraining orders. My friends told me it was messed up, but I refused to listen. I probably did some serious, permanent mental damage to the poor kid. I hope he's managed to recover, and I hope he never has to worry about anything like this again. He deserves the relief. My best friend's younger sister had a weird headband on one day. We were in high school at the time, so she was in middle school. She and my friend didn't really get along, and she was kind of mean to me too, so I saw an opportunity to tease her and said, "Nice headband." Turns out she had cosmetic surgery of some kind to make her ears stick out less, and the headband was there to cover her surgical wounds. I sure felt like a butthole. This actually happened yesterday. It's not that bad of a thing, but I was driving on a road and I saw someone on a side street pull out onto my road right in front of a girl that was trying to cross the street. Immediately, I got teed off that this D-bag almost hit a girl just to be fast. So I followed him for about 30 seconds until he parked, so I drove right up next to him and said, "Hey, butthole, you almost killed that girl back there. What the frick were you thinking?" He looked confused and just said, "Dude, she waved me ahead and let me go. What the frick are you talking about?" Immediately, I started to apologize, telling him that it looked bad from where I was, but yeah, I went from hero to zero real quick. I broke up with a close friend and made up with them recently. I was being emotional and lashed out, questioning their friendship because they wouldn't drop everything they were doing for me. I know now that I'm wrong. My friend has always been there for me, and I still feel bad even though I apologized. I'm a bad friend. Got into a fist fight. We were equally sized and matched, but I came out on top. For those of you who've ever been in a fist fight, you know that line you're not supposed to cross? You know, when the fight should be over, but you throw another punch anyway? I crossed that line. I threw several more punches. I wasn't proud afterwards. I'm not entirely sure this fits, but I'll put it down anyway. I used to be insanely shy and thought everyone hated me for no reason because they wouldn't talk to me. Turns out I was intimidating because I never wanted to talk and was too scared to be around them, so they eventually gave up. Since then, I've been trying to make an effort to be nice and say hi to everyone, but I'm still struggling a bit. In first grade, I was making fun of a short boy without realizing I was hurting his feelings. It got to the point where I'd upset him so much he buried his tiny first-grade fist right in my stomach. I was left lying on the playground trying to catch my breath. Sort of an eye-opener then and there to treat people the way I wanted to be treated. Good on him for jumping to make sure he actually could get you in the stomach. My dog was barking for no reason and wouldn't stop after I yelled at him 3 times. I turned around and he's at the door looking at me with his derpy face while the neighbor's dog continues to bark. Sorry, bud. A guy kept bumping into me in line at a theme park. I kindly asked him twice to back up a bit and give me some room. The third time I turned right around and raised my voice a little and started to show some irritation. This guy was clearly on the spectrum. Parents and family shuffled him back a few steps and apologized to me. I almost cried from embarrassment. People who've clicked on really risky-looking ads. What actually happened when you committed? My dad, rest him, kept getting viruses on his laptop because of these ads. But it's the specific ones that chat at you by name, you know? So he knew, in retrospect, that these ads were what was messing up his computer, but he kept falling for them because they'd address him by name. So he always figured that it must be someone he knew, because they wouldn't just chat and call him by his first name otherwise, right? Oh, Dad. Oh gosh, I used to work at one of those places that provides captions for hearing-impaired telephone users, and I listened to one side of a call between an old man and his adult daughter. Dad, I told you to not click on those links. No, I'm not replacing another computer for you. I told you not to click on those links. Those are not real girls, it's a scam. Do you really think there are single girls in your area? In North Dakota? You're 85 years old, why would they want to meet you? It went on a while longer with more in the same vein. It was the second funniest crap I'd heard at that job, even if it was a little sad when the daughter acknowledged that she knew her father was lonely. Used to be one of the people who bought these ads to promote those sites. 90% are cash grabs, populated by bots or paid girls to lead guys on. They have some real users. Most of the users are still bots or hired folk. You might even end up talking to Misty, who is actually Devinder from India. It's cheap to get real humans from developing countries. I clicked on one of them that told me, "This game will make you come in 2 minutes." Out of curiosity. Played some Star Trek derivative game for about 6 months and it was actually kind of fun. I never came while playing it though. A couple of years ago, a young guy, he must have been a teenager around 16 or 17, came to my door and told me that he's looking for this girl, who he met through some stupid explicit dating site, and she gave him my address to meet. I told him that I live here by myself, I'm a 28-year-old man, and all of the women who've been here since I moved in here are not from that particular site, I believe. But he was too adamant and was sweating hard by now, so I asked him to come in and sit and gave him a glass of water. Then I asked him how much he had paid for that, and he looked down and said $750. So again, I asked how he'd managed to pay, and he replied, "Mum's card." So after a small unofficial counseling session, I convinced him to call his parents to my place and played a mediator between the two parties. We, all adults, decided to report this to the police since my address was also used for the fraud, and Mother immediately blocked her card. Family invited me for dinner for keeping their son calm during a panicking situation, and we all laughed over a drink after the poor kid went to sleep. Honestly, that's probably the best possible resolution that could have come out of the situation, even with the $750 down the drain. Also, this topic is by its nature going to talk about the kind of content where actors take their clothes off and do the deed together. To avoid getting demonetized, I'm going to use the word prawn instead of the usual one. Case in point, I clicked one of the ads for one of those $1 trials to one of the big-name prawn sites. Reality Kings, maybe. This was a while ago, I don't really remember. I figured I'd see what might make prawn actually worth paying for, and either way, I'd only be out $1. First, it ended up being $2, not because of any weird fees, but they charged my card twice. But I trudged on because, what's $2? And I can complain to them later. So I get their email like, "Thanks for signing up for the trial. Click here to check out our content." I click there. I immediately get 2 more emails being charged twice in the amount of something like $40 each. At this point, I don't even bother. I immediately close everything and fire up their customer support. I tell them that I paid $1 for a trial, got double charged, and proceeded to click on the link given to me in the email thanking me for signing up, and then was instantly double charged $40. The support rep told me I was charged because I went to a premium area not included in the free trial, and by going into that area, I automatically agreed to pay for a full subscription. I told her, no, I clicked on the link you sent me, I'll be taking a refund. She said they don't give refunds. I told her that they'll give me a refund or my bank will be giving me it. Suddenly, they magically gave refunds. I never got the $2 charge back, but $2 to learn that even the big-name prawn distributors will try and screw you out of your money, so I shouldn't ever bother actually paying for that content was all right in my book. A friend in an online game was active military in Afghanistan. He used to joke that he'd see those ads, "Beautiful girl 3 miles from your location wants to meet you," and he'd be like, "Get the frick out of there, you're in danger. This is not the time to be looking for guys on the internet." A serious reply here. One day I was curious, so I just thought, F it, and I signed in with a fake ID. It was some kind of dating site where men are only sporadically allowed. Of course, I was one of the happy few. Fancy that. The site itself seemed like a regular dating site. The main difference was that a ton of ladies were sending me messages. They actually seemed really interested, but obviously they were all bots. They wanted you to sign up for a premium account for a monthly fee, but I was not curious enough for that. It was quite the anticlimax. I like those meet local randy women in your insert small town area because I always think, wait a minute, I am one of those right now, so why aren't they asking me if I want to hook up with guys in my town? My old roommate got scammed by advertisements like this. Bought a book for $50, called the Iron Man's Wang. It gave him exercises and stuff to do to grow his eggplant's size. It obviously did nothing, but he didn't stick with it for very long and gave up. When he told us about it, we told him he was scammed. Where can one find this book? I'm asking for a friend. I clicked on the fruit one, not out of real interest, but just to hear the bullcrap. It was at least a 30-minute PowerPoint slideshow type video with a guy talking about his tiny wang and how it's now huge. He talked about eating this magical fruit from the Congo because black people in Africa are hung, but you have to eat it with certain other fruits. He never mentions any of the other fruits, by the way, and then says he made pills out of the fruit's magical eggplant-growing ingredients. I bought pills for my member, and they gave me stomach issues for about 6 months. I have to admit that I was incredibly surprised that there were hot local singles in my small town. My grandma's boyfriend started paying $7 to send a message, $7 to open a message, to a pretty Thai girl online. They fell in love, so my mother made a fake account and got the same girl to propose to her within a single message. My grandma didn't find out that my mother had done this, but she did see the evidence of the rest, and that boyfriend is no more. I have a story from the other side of this. I used to be a bottle server at a nightclub. I had these regulars who would often come in once, twice, or 3 times a week. They would rack up bills oftentimes as high as $3,000 on a regular basis. They were quite young, probably late 20s. My club charged every card an automatic 20% gratuity. They knew this, but they would always throw in an extra $100 for me. They were almost always on a substance while they were partying, and they often tried to convince me to take some while working. Yeah, fat chance, I love my job. They would get like 6 bottles of champagne and just hand glasses to anyone who walked by. I served them consistently for months. They were always very secretive about what they did to make all that money. Over time, I pieced together enough little bits of information I'd gathered from various members of the group at various times, and finally figured out the source of their wealth. They stole people's identities and credit card information through pop-up ads on adult sites. They were all computer wizards and seemingly worked separately and independently, but had somehow found each other through some underground community meetup of hackers and scammers, if I recall correctly. By then, I believe they'd begun working together quite frequently, but I'm unclear on their working relationship, just not the nature of their business. They claimed to make hundreds of thousands per month doing this, and they certainly spent money like that was the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was a gross exaggeration, as I'd caught them embellishing various different things on numerous occasions. I've tried playing the racy-looking games, but they never actually show the fun bits of the body, and they're boring. And it's always a looping gif of some SFM prawn montage of an Overwatch character or something. Or this one, I only remember it now because it made me laugh so much. It was a really crude animation of a guy and a girl doing the deed, and in the background there was a girl with a really large sombrero really violently strumming on a guitar. It was just so ridiculous looking. I shan't forget it for a while. A channel I used to watch went out of their way to play these sorts of games whenever they popped up, properly censored, of course, for YouTube. It feels like from the amount of censoring going on, a lot of them do actually show naughty bits and the doing of the deed, but maybe they were better at finding those. I was a young 18-year-old lad and bored. I saw the usual ad of click here for fun girls in your area, and I thought to myself that I had fraud protection, so I was all good. The website took my entered card info and immediately started racking up random charges for gift cards and premium hotmail.com services. I guess that's a thing. I called the bank support line, quite nervous as I was paying for adult services and was still uncomfortable talking about that kind of thing. The guy at the bank was a total bro and literally said, "Oh, you lost your card at the mall. I'm sorry to hear that. Let me reverse those charges and get you a new card." Never once had I mentioned a lost card or the mall. Would have been a life customer if they hadn't closed that branch. There was one about psychology of women and how to get laid more often. Spoilers, it's a man on a 30-minute video talking about nonsense. Then at the end, he gloats about his money. I now know the secret to getting laid more often. Find a girl, talk to her about nothing important, tell her I have money, invite her to my place. Apparently it works 2 out of 3 times. I saw an ad about a video on how to do the deed longer while controlling exactly when you splooge. The curiosity got the better of me, so I clicked on it. The video was about 34 minutes long. The first 10 minutes was just about a guy talking about how he'll tell you the secret in just a few minutes. He rambled on and on about how he was a loser in college and the army. He talked about how he struggled through basic training, but he managed to power through it by putting mind over matter. So he thought he could try putting mind over matter when it came to doing the deed. He also showed his before and after pics of his time during school in the army. They weren't even the same person, but he apparently takes home 5 different women every week now. Around the 20-minute mark is when he finally revealed the big secret. The big secret to not arriving and lasting longer is to just not think about it. That's it. So when you're in bed with someone and getting close, just don't think about it at all and your problems will be solved. The last 10 minutes of the video was him advertising something completely different that I can't even remember what it was. I think it was a book or something. I was again curious as to the price of the item, so I clicked on the link, but was redirected to a checkout on a shady website asking if I want to go ahead and pay over $2,500 for a lifetime supply of pills for my eggplant. I probably got a ton of viruses, but now I can go on with my life knowing those videos are bogus. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Speaking of sausage enlargement ads, I hate the ads that you see on relatively tamer sites where the ad is like, "Men need to see this," and it shows some weird clamfish thing that resembles a male member. Either way, the answer is inevitably going to be viruses. Not prawns like all the others, but my grandma clicked on one of those "Get a free MacBook Air for filling out this survey" ads. She did the survey and actually got a MacBook Air. I don't know if she got any viruses, fraudulent charges on her card or whatnot, but they did deliver on their promise. I thought it was neat, but I'd never do it myself. I messaged her on Facebook about it, and she said it ended up costing her money with all the peripherals and Mac services and such, but the base laptop itself was free. I remember when I was about 15, I came across a Russian girl, probably a bot, and I ended up mailing her all the time. They never asked for money, but they just talked about their life and stuff. It was like a pen pal that just sent me pictures of themselves undressed every once in a while. Then one day they just stopped responding, and I haven't clicked any of those links since. I was a terrible 18-year-old who'd just moved to a new city for college and knew nobody. Through one of those pop-ups, I found a hookup site that was something cheap, like $3 a month. I signed up for the free account and got some messages, but to reply, I needed to be a paying member. I put $10 on a prepaid Visa card so that if I got scammed, it was only for $10. The 1 month I had the account, I got no messages. The day my month expired, I got 7 messages from different girls who'd be way out of my league if they were real. Not stupid enough to fall for it again, I closed my account. $3 spent to learn that those websites are bullcrap is a fairly cheap lesson. Thank you for an actual response. Worth noting, it's not just fake-looking hookup sites that do this. The highly advertised Ashley Madison website does it too. There's basically no real female users on that one. It's all staff trying to bait subscriptions. Literally last night I said F it and clicked on one of the enlargement ads. Literally all it was a 50-minute video of a bunch of women saying that size matters, and if your member is under 7 inches, you're out of luck. Not signed up as such, but a mate of mine met a girl on one of those campsites you can just flick through, past all of the wangs. Anyway, she was amazing and did everything you want, including getting him to play as well. I added him on Facebook, legit pictures apparently, and she was gorgeous. Next minute, she disappears off camera and instead a video plays of him cranking off. She comes back and says it's going to cost him £500 or she'll send it to his entire Facebook list. He panicked, deleted his entire Facebook account, and to this day is too scared of opening it back up just in case. I didn't commit, but my antivirus program popped up saying that it blocked an attack after clicking one of those ads. In the name of science, I clicked on one of those ads after reading this post, and I'm happy I did, because I just won $1 million and a free gift hamper. See you later, suckers! Hi, I'm a prince of a remote country. If you want to get some more $1 million, send me your bank account information. A lot of people are beginning their stories with, I was 18 years old. Oh, we know you were younger than 18, mate. Well, back when I was younger, it was all adultfriendfinder.com. Believe it or not, I actually met my wife there. We've been married almost 9 years now. Well, I signed up for Adult Friend Finder because I was sick of the runaround on eHarmony, and I just wanted to do the deed with someone. After sending out about 10 messages, I realized most of them were bots. But then I got one message back from a girl that was 9 years younger than me that didn't follow the same template. I was highly skeptical that it was a scam, but we exchanged a few texts, did a video chat, and we met a week later. 2 years later, we were married and have been for 9 years. At first, we told people that we met through friends, then we started saying we met online and being vague about the site. Now we joke about it with people if they really want to know. I mean, the fact that we're 29 stories in and we only just found our first entirely positive one should tell you everything that you need to know about these ads. My dad. He's old. He still thinks you have to pay for prawns. About every 6 months, he goes through an identity theft situation and also has a computer loaded full of viruses. Back when the shady toolbars were still a thing, he'd have 2 or 3 all the time. The last few times I rebuilt his computer, I just left a shortcut on the desktop to uprawn, and then an ad-blocking host file. 9 out of 10 sites saying, fill out a survey or sign up for a free account, take you to a totally irrelevant site to do so and never redirect you back. One of them, I checked the source code, all the click here button did was summon a GIF of a loading bar. Okay, so this was about a year ago, and mind you, I was low on sleep. I'd just finished an 8-hour shift and it was like 7 AM. So I saw an ad that said something like, enroll now for premium and receive a 14-day free trial, or some bullcrap. Anywho, I typed in my info as fast as possible because at this point I'm very sleepy and very in the mood. I then proceed to crank away all of my fears of any charges, because damn, it was good to have high-definition prawns. Upon finishing my duties, panic sets in and I quickly check my bank account and a lot of charges were pending. I spent the rest of the day trying to contact someone about cancelling my subscription. Long story short, I ended up calling my bank and thanked the skies it was a guy because I didn't feel like explaining this to a woman. I caught chlamydia, or what WebMD told me was chlamydia, from an ex. I was too embarrassed to go to my doctor, I was in my early 20s at the time, so I went to a shady pharmaceutical site that I'd seen pop-ups for. I used my trusty NetSpend prepaid Visa and ordered as much penicillin as I could afford. I kept popping pills until my wang stopped leaking a few weeks later. So I guess that was a win? I swiped right on a super hot and busty lass. It's a match. Right. I'm sure the 22-year-old with perfect body and skin is interested in a bold 35-year-old single father. It happens all the time. A guy I worked with in a crappy local bar ran one of those websites on the side, as well as a scummy amateur prawn site trying to imitate another one. He was totally upfront with us about how much of a scam it was, basically asking you to pay for everything. Send a message, pay. Receive a message, pay. Open a message, pay. He made some decent money off it and the prawn site to the point where he moved out west to further his career in the prawn industry. Kinda wonder what happened to him. I've been on Adult Friend Finder for a while. Half a year, I guess. I can't remember. But there are some users that are real and would like to explore more. It's just that there are way too many fake profiles on there when compared to a real person. I'd say 3 to 7. Some guy on the Joe Rogan show experimented with all kinds of gas station eggplant pills. Things that he thought would help his performance, and the stories are fricking hilarious. He would say that his eggplant would get so uncomfortably swole, like it got bitten by a snake, but he would keep doing it for the girl's shock value. He eventually stopped because the pills are most likely pure poison. After watching a video on YouTube about fraudulent advertisements, I decided to do an experiment. I clicked on one of those games that are advertised, and they need my credit card details to check that I'm a real person. I put in some fake credit card details and suddenly it says I can't enter the site at this time. You'd have to be really dumb to fall for that. Tinder is full of women within 5 miles from me, none of whom want to do the deed with me. I was bored one night and started chatting with a girl from Colospace, now called Color.me. From the very beginning, I knew it was a scam, but I had nothing better to do, so I played along. She kept trying to get me to sign up for her premium site. She would say things like, "It says that they'll charge you, but it won't. It's just so I can send you pics." I played along and said that I'd signed up. She was obviously looking at some part of the system because she started asking me to send her the screenshot of me signing up. The scam was getting so obvious it was cringy by this time. I could tell she was about to give up, so I started saying random text-sounding stuff like, "Well, maybe it's because the gigabytes don't travel through the Cat5 of my VPN because I'm on a government computer, and the Teradyne sometimes blocks incoming DDoS Wi-Fi requests." She pretends like she understands, and tries to help me troubleshoot it. Eventually I get bored and tell her I'm not giving her any money. She told me to F off and stopped talking to me. There was a time in my teens where I discovered that Yoohoo chat rooms had mature chat rooms where you could meet people for voyeurism and such. At first, it was a lot of fun. I was always in the mood and young and fit, and was not picky at all. Early on, I had a lot of success getting mutual cam sessions between myself and women. It didn't take long before it was overrun by bots who would just try and get you to pay sites. One day, I just decided to follow through one of these camgirl sessions. She wasn't even super attractive and had no one else in her room. It cost me probably about $70, but I was more interested in understanding what her experience doing this was like and such. We just chatted for a bit. Basically found out she was Russian and was hired by a company to put on the shows for terrible pay. Basically, long story short, she ended up quitting the whole camgirl thing because she wasn't getting enough viewers to make it worth it after the middlemen took their cut. We actually exchanged personal emails and kept contact for a number of years. Basically, would send random undressed pictures back and forth, and we still cammed back and forth for mutual voyeurism and fun. And I didn't even have to pay for any of this. Definitely not the outcome you'd normally expect from something like this, but it was fun. She never asked me for money or to try and bring her to the US or anything. We'd just sort of chat when we were bored and in the mood. What's the most pathetic way you've seen someone try to look manly? I once worked in an office where they let us pick out our new desks and order them from a catalogue. My boss came in to check mine out and he noticed it was like 6 inches bigger than his new desk. I came in the next morning and he had made the maintenance guys switch them. He claimed it was because his desk was a better height for me. Shockingly, he turned out to be insane in other ways as well. Who'd have thought it? I once saw a P-plater, Australian for new driver, in a hotted-up car waiting at the traffic lights in the rain. He was facing up a hill, and when the lights turned green, he put his foot on the accelerator hard and attempted to speed off and ended up getting absolutely no traction. This resulted in his wheels just spinning and him doing a kind of stationary fishtail while slowly sliding back down the hill. He ended up missing that green light. I couldn't stop laughing. There's a substance called synthol that some bodybuilders and a lot of wannabe tough guys inject themselves with to create fake muscles. Googling for it leads to gems such as guys that look like Popeye and stick figures in water wings. Not so cool. My voice drops lower when I talk to my father-in-law. I rarely catch myself and talk normal. When I do try to talk normal, I think I sound squeaky. I'm nearly 40 with 3 kids, by the way. My boyfriend does this as well. When he's speaking to my dad, his voice will be unnaturally low, but as soon as you get any alcohol in him, he sounds like a frickin' pixie. It's hilarious! When I was but 12, some kid came into middle school with a beard drawn onto his face in Sharpie. He desperately tried to make everyone believe it was his real beard, that he grew it overnight. I must have hit a growth spurt, he said. I wish camera phones were a thing back then. I started shaving every few days when I was 12 and was mocked for it. I had a full beard by 14 and I still got crap for it. You really can't win. Well, I believe the myth that shaving increases beard growth has been thoroughly debunked. The sir, or bearded madam in this last post, was likely always going to be that way. Post-college, my friends started a cigar night as a guys' hangout night. I thought everyone always said don't inhale cigars because they were wimps and couldn't handle the strong buzz. So I intentionally inhaled with every puff throughout the entire cigar. I got so sick I literally turned a pale shade of green like an old cartoon, and puked for an hour until only foam was coming out of me. I went to a party where there was a 4-man hookah set up. My friend had never tried one and was very curious. It turns out, while everyone enjoyed the hookah for a bit, went off to mingle and come back to it later, my friend spent nearly the entire party at the hookah. He spent the latter portion of the party hovering over the toilet. When I was 12 years old, I was walking into a convenience store with a friend. She was a total tomboy. In fact, she looked more like a boy than a girl. As we're walking in, she sees this sweet mid-60s ragtop Corvette, and she's ogling it. I was too, but she makes this big thumbs-up sign to the hot blonde sitting in the passenger seat. This long-haired moron in his late 20s came running out of the convenience store and yelled to my friend Sabrina, "Hey punk, quit making eyes at my girl." He comes over, grabs my friend's arm, pulls back a fist. My friend is just stark white and speechless. I shout, "She's a 12-year-old girl, what are you doing? Stop!" He finally stops, realizes what the heck he's doing, but, always being a moron, says, "Don't let me see you eyeballing her again, or I'll mess you up." I'm not sure what happened after he drove off, but his girlfriend did not look like a happy camper. I'm hoping she dumped his sorry butt. Back in the MySpace days, I knew a kid who took a pic of himself with his shirt off, and then used Photoshop to turn his skin black and give himself a goatee. He also fancied himself a rapper and took on the stage name Diamond. Yes, with 2 eyes, because he was so hard. Affluent private school kids, am I right? Oh my god. 2 eyes for a double dose of idiot. I was dating this girl a few years ago, and I was meeting some of her good friends for the first time at Chili's. I'd just turned 21 and they were all younger than me, so I thought, I'll look so cool if I order some alcohol. I'd never ordered drinks before, so I didn't know what to order. I'd only been to parties where there was beer. I thought, nah, beer is no good. I need something with liquor. While I was pondering what to order, the waiter asked me what I wanted to drink. At that moment, only one drink came to mind. "Yeah, give me a Cosmopolitan, please." Cue to the waiter bringing me a Chili's branded shaker that I got to take home with a fabulous pink drink in it, and me looking like an offensive caricature of a gay man instead of the Ron Swanson that I thought I'd look like. When the teacher says, "If you don't want to learn, then just leave," someone got up and left and swore at the teacher, grinning at his friends. About 30 seconds later, he came back in saying, "Actually, I kinda need to know this stuff." Honestly, I've got to respect the kid for admitting that and taking the L while looking out for his future. Only barely related, but I had a teacher who would say, "Oh, go fly a kite," if you had a differing idea of what symbolism in a particular book meant. So I packed a folding kite in my backpack, and the next time she requested I go, I did. The detention was worth it. My new dentist is a good-looking 25 or 26-year-old woman. Now I hold off bursting into tears until I get to my car. I had a friend who, when he'd go to the movies with me or one of our other male friends, would always leave an empty seat between himself and us so he didn't look gay. Either that or he got the separate seat because our elbows kept poking him while the rest of us were cranking each other off. I had some friends in high school that would do that when we'd go to the movies. I never knew how to react, so I usually just sat in between them. In high school, I would put Rogaine on my chin and face to try and grow a beard. A bunch of my friends and I were hanging out one time when my best friend's little brother, probably 15 or so at the time, did something very feminine. It was a long time ago, so I don't exactly recall what it was. We all laughed and I yelled at him, "Quick, do something manly!" To which he replied in sheer panic, "I could strip off my clothes and dance for you guys." Needless to say, we never let him live it down. Back in high school, I was friends with a guy on the football team who was pretty much exclusively a bench warmer. Throughout each game, he would discreetly try to rub grass and dirt on his uniform so it looked like he'd seen some action when he ran off the field. My friends and I took up skateboarding one summer and worked at it every day. While we would practice, one of my friends would spend his time rubbing the bottom of his skateboard against concrete corners to make it look like he'd grinded. My freshman year of college in the spring, at the rec pool. The rec pool was the place to be, babes as far as the eye can see. Anywho, my friends and I are out on the pool deck, and I've decided that as we're walking in front of some bikini-clad chicks, that it would be a good time to de-shirt and reveal my awesome torso to them. My shirt got stuck on my neck, and I, blinded by my own shirt, as well as my hubris, fell into the pool with my shirt still around my neck. I was so cool. I took the last place in a hairy chest contest. It's okay, sweetie, I have literally no chest hair or facial hair whatsoever. Of course, I'm a girl, so… Rest assured that if the narrator had competed in that particular tournament, he would have either lost or tied with you. But then again, I know not to enter one. A co-worker of mine was a one-upping, bull-crapping, blatant liar. We'd troll him every day to see how far his lies would go. The one that popped into my head when I saw this group of stories was that he drank a quart of 10W30 motor oil to impress a girl. I have a buddy who was hanging out with us, and he starts with, "Oh, I'm friends with the local college cheerleaders. I'll see if they want to come and party with us." He texts them, and they say that they're still on their way back from a game. Another buddy comes to join us, and we explain who we're going to be hanging out with tonight. He informs us that the game was a home game at 1 in the afternoon, 9 hours before this happened. All the first guy could say was, well, I don't know where they are then." We know you don't, buddy. I've got a friend just like that. It gets to the point where whenever he says something outrageous, my friends and I just say, "cool," and change the subject. Handstand push-ups at a party. Well, I saw a guy doing dips at the library. I knew this guy that would intentionally leave his fly open on his jeans, so that people would mention it and he could reply, "I guess my huge wang is that noticeable." One time I went for sushi on a first date, and I wanted to impress the girl with how much wasabi I could handle with my sushi. I ended up leaving snot all over the place while tears ran down my face. I learned that a friend of mine gets dressed in this order: cologne, white shirt, more cologne, another white shirt, more cologne, another white shirt, cologne again, his normal shirt, and then more cologne. I always just thought he was a pretty swole guy, but I've learned that he's actually pretty scrawny under there. There are 4 shirts? In 5th grade, I had a classmate who always tried to show off. One day, he claimed that he could make his face red in less than 10 seconds. Spectators gathered. He holds his breath in and pushes, to build up pressure in his head. Not sure how else to explain it. His face does get ridiculously red, and then all of a sudden we heard a slight pop noise, and his right eye had moved forward literally half an inch out of his head like it was about to pop out entirely. Shrill screams ensued, the teacher was cursing, and then ambulance sirens sounded in the distance. What a man he was. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I guess this counts as attempted manliness? Back when I was 9 or 10, I was at camp. There was this girl that I liked, so in order to try and look cool, I'd take my glasses off and close my eyes real tight. Eventually, she asked why I was doing that, and I replied that if I couldn't see, I gained super hearing and could hear nature all around me. Needless to say, I was, and am, SAP's mammalian brother. Oh look, I dropped my magnum rubber that I use on my monster dong. One time, I was with a lady friend and my mattress was kind of not aligned properly with the bed spring, and it bothered her. She said, "Let's fix it," and I said, No, I got it, don't worry." As I bent down to push it forward, it was heavier than I expected. I grunted and pushed forward. And as I did this, I tooted really loudly. I once saw a guy with Thug Life tattooed on his bicep in Comic Sans. "Which, do I look like I care about your text preferences? I got this for me, and I got a font that represents me and my life. We from the street, man. We don't have time for all this serif crap. Busy hustling. God damn." I wear the smallest lab coat I can find, with my regular clothes on underneath it. It looks like I have massive guns. I'd like to tell you that everyone else thinks you look like the Michelin Man, but I don't have the heart to tell you. I once saw a group of high school-aged kids in a local park accompanied by a young woman. They're all hanging out, and the alpha kid, in an attempt to impress said girl, gets up and takes his shirt off, and then walks around to all of the picnic tables and starts lifting one side of them up as high as he can over and over again. It was quite clear that he had the strongest pubescent muscles. I peacock by going to karaoke bars and singing Regina Spektor songs in the manliest falsetto possible. At a party in my university, a reasonably tubby guy was trying to chat up a girl. She didn't seem particularly interested but was being polite. The guy gets a text, flips open his phone and starts to read it. Suddenly realizing the faux pas he's unwittingly committed, he proceeds to snap his phone in half as if to say, "I care far more about this conversation than some meaningless phone." The girl realizes that was dumb and immediately leaves, so the boy has no phone and no chance of getting any. Also, I know a couple of 30-plus males that went down and egged the local Occupy protesters. So tough. God damn, that's pathetic. I grew up in a small town and there used to be this idiot that would drive around in a crappy convertible by himself. He had his parents' hi-fi speakers in the back and would drive around talking on his cell phone. The town didn't have any cell phone towers or reception back then. Pickup artists are as hilarious as they are stupid and annoying. I don't know if either of these guys technically count as pickup artists, or if they regularly attempted their stunts to pick up girls, but I wouldn't be surprised. I heard on the radio once that the guys who hung out with Frank Sinatra had a difficult time keeping up with him while partying, so they would get a watered-down Coke so that it appeared to be whiskey, while Frank hit the hard stuff. Big old trucks with a pair of truck nuts hanging on the back of them. I was bringing my wife, who makes fun of how unmanly I am, a bowl of soup, and I filled it pretty high. The tops of my fingers ended up in the soup. To show manliness, I didn't flinch and ended up with blisters on several of my fingers. When I was younger, around 6 or 7, I had to stay at my grand's during the day while school was out. She had this little tricycle that was way too small for me to sit on, so I used to stand on the back axle and drive it around like I was a rally driver. Don't ask. One day she had to walk around the shops, so like any good rally driver secret agent superhero, I gave her support via the Subaru. Again, don't ask. On the way back, we went another route and had to walk past 2 or 3 girls around my age. Wanting to man up, I wanted to act big and hard, so I jumped off the Subaru, lifted the tiny tricycle up and held it vertically above my head like a champion weightlifter. At the time, I was a huge wrestling fan, particularly of The Rock. My favorite part of The Rock was the people's eyebrow. Google if you don't know. I strutted up to these little girls, tricycle above my head, turned to them and gave them the baddest people's eyebrow to ever grace this earth, along with the line, "Ladies?" The only thing that could possibly happen, happened. I fell. The tricycle came crashing onto the floor, elbows and knees were grazed, and there were tears in my eyes. My gran had to carry me home. I was only 6 or 7 at the time, but frick. That still hurts, man. I started dressing nicely and began to improve my vocabulary. Oh well. My mom grew a mustache. Oh wait, I might have misunderstood the topic question. I was working out at the gym and it just so happened that a recent ex of mine was there at the same time. We met at the gym, so this wasn't really a shock. I was at the pull-up bar and she was pretty close by, so I got it in my head that I should try and show off or something. So I started doing lots of pull-ups really fast and intensely, when my hand slipped and I fell off the bar and right onto my butt. I kept my head down and just walked straight into the changing room. It felt bad, man. I got on a plane a few months ago. For my background, I'm male. I put my bag in the overhead compartment and sat down. I looked over and saw a girl. If you must know, she wasn't unattractive. Read, she was really hot. She was having trouble fitting her bag in the overhead compartment. I, being the gentleman that I am, saw the opportunity to assist, thinking that at some point down the road it might lead to something. So I tried for about 30 seconds and then said, "It doesn't fit." I sat down and abort mating rituals. About 30 seconds later, I looked up and another girl had gotten up and helped the first girl put her bag in the compartment, and it fit in like 2 seconds. I don't know what they did, I don't know how they got it, all I know is that I didn't make eye contact with either of them for the rest of the flight. My favorites are the guys who refuse to drink, quote, girly drinks. They don't want to be thought of as gay or a Nancy. It's a drink, yo. The people who try to fight the bouncers or the bar staff in general. There are more of us and the bouncers are sober. Good Lord help you if you touch one of our waitresses inappropriately. We like our hot waitresses and most of them are dating staff members. My cousin has "sure thing" tattooed on his forearm in the most gangster-looking letters he could find. He's pretty nerdy, but adopted a gangster persona after leaving home and joining the armed forces. I laughed out loud when I saw his Facebook picture showing it off, flashing the sideways peace sign and trying to look fly with his new tattoo very visible. Cap sideways, of course. I used to skateboard a lot. I also had a slightly overprotective mother, so anytime I went to a skate park, I was that scrawny kid in full pads. I didn't give an F, it meant that I got to skateboard. Anyway, I think I was 13 or 14 at the time. I was minding my own business, probably trying to do a super stylish boneless in a quarter pipe. Don't hate, the old school tricks are rad. And I see this guy bail and just lie in the bottom of the bowl area while his board flew out onto the deck. He was a few years older than me and was obviously not hurt seriously, and there with several of his buddies. Being a nice guy, I grabbed his board, which had rolled close to where I was, and rolled it back down to him. I skated away, not paying attention, and then I hear him yell out, "Who did that?" Apparently, the board had rolled into his side while he was facing the other way. There was no way it had hurt in the least. I'd made sure that it would roll at a safe speed to him. As I turned around to see what the shouting was, I see his buddies pointing at me. "Hey, you want to fight?" he shouts at me. Now, you don't know me all that well, but you can imagine I should be feeling slightly intimidated. And to be honest, prior to this situation, I always thought I would have been intimidated by a bully. Thankfully, the situation gave me some much-needed perspective. I'd just done this guy a favor and he wants to fight me. What the frick, right? Is he serious? "If you want to fight me, I'm right here," I reply with no hesitation. He just kind of stares at me for a second and then turned away. I heard his buddies giving him a hard time, and it was like a joyous chorus of angels. I felt like I owned that frickin' skate park for the rest of the day. Getting a motorcycle license to try and be cool and manly. I actually realize it's fricking amazing and that the aforementioned status didn't matter to me once I achieved it. I used to waitress at a bar on the main street of a small town, which was also home to several restaurants nearby. Drunk guys trying bullcrap manliness to hit on me became normal after a while. One night I was walking past two guys sitting at the main bar, and one of them flagged me down on the pretense of some bullcrap question about the menu. Then, like a good friend, he started trying to wingman his buddy, telling me how he was such a great guy and thought I was cute, and oh by the way, was on the big NFL team of our state, and that I should be totally flattered that he was interested in me and maybe try to give him my number or go home with him. Meanwhile, said guy is sitting next to us trying his best to look humble. After trying not to laugh at him outright, I extricated myself and for some reason didn't try to explain to him the two main reasons why this tactic was clearly not going to work for them. The first, unlike most people in that town, I do not give a crap about football. The second, his friend was still in his work uniform from the restaurant next door. When did book smarts not necessarily equal real smarts? My boss and I were chatting on the phone about some random work issue. He told me to call so-and-so for some reason. I told him that I needed the number. He said, "Hold on, gotta look up the number on my phone." Shuffling sounds. Oh crap, where's my phone? Damn, Jane, my phone must have fallen out of my pocket. Son of a Mitch. Well, I'm gonna have to call you back once I find it. I cracked up until he jokingly yelled, "Don't you tell anyone about this." Once I got a call from one of my college professors, one of the smartest and friendliest people that I know. Can you pick me up at this address? 30 miles from his place without public transport? Sure. How did you end up there? I went to go and sell my car to this one guy. I joined Mensa for the card. When I went to Kinko's to laminate it, I didn't read the instructions on the wall, and the laminate melted to the machine. I had to get the Kinko's guy to open the machine for me, but by then, the card was bubbling. When he scraped it out and saw what it was, he laughed. He laughed so hard. He thought there was 60 cents in $1. Took him a solid couple of minutes to figure out that there wasn't after we just sat there laughing at him. My wife, the smartest person I know by the way, looked at the sky at about 3 p.m. and asked why the sun was so dim. She was looking at the moon. I mean, I would look up at the moon during the day as a 5-year-old and wonder why it was in the sky. Surely this presumably adult woman could also see it and realize that it was a distinct entity from the blazing ball of light that we can't look directly at during any given time. Brain fart moment, I suppose? I was at law school with a smart guy. We shared a house. He wouldn't heat up anything in the microwave if it hadn't been brought as a microwavable product. He was convinced it would get pumped with radiation and he'd be eating radioactive food. My grandfather is a chemical engineer that used to work for Dow handling startup of some of their biggest plants. He went on to be an expert in industrial cleanup operations. He's a practical genius. He also decided it was perfectly acceptable to put stuffing into a plastic bowl and slide it into a 400-degree oven. I mean, I once put pizza in the oven on a wooden plate I was going to serve it on after, so I'm not going to judge him. We still ate the pizza, but it definitely had a strange taste. I once tried opening a thing of Pillsbury biscuits with a can opener a few years ago. My mother took my picture with it to use it against me in the future. I had a college professor insist that afternoons started at 11 a.m. because that's when we had lunch. I have no idea how you could get that wrong. Afternoon starts afternoon. It's in the damn word. Fun thing about college faculty, they're generally very knowledgeable about one thing only, and actually pretty stupid about a lot of other things. That's what you get for spending 10 years devoted to the study of one thing, usually somewhat obscure, to the point where you're probably the world authority on it. Can confirm, my stepfather is a geology professor at a university. The guy can tell you anything about any rock. He can do complex math equations in his head. The guy literally forgets to eat sometimes. He can be completely stumped by a basic math equation if it's written differently than he would expect. It's a good thing he doesn't have a garage, or he would probably have accidentally poisoned himself by now. One time, my friends and I were walking downtown and we were passing through a parking lot. One of my friends noticed this and asked, "Is this a car dealership?" "No, this is a parking lot." So naturally he responded with, "But why are there cars here?" It took a few minutes of explaining for him to remember that cars do tend to park in parking lots. This one is so bad that reading it got me stupid. My boyfriend. We did those 90-second microwavable rice packets and I smelled something burning. I asked, "How long did you put the rice in for?" And he said, 3 minutes. I told him, "It was only supposed to be 90 seconds. And he looked at me like I was stupid and told me, yeah, that's 90 seconds. Then a few seconds later, he turned bright red. I still make fun of him for it. One of my mum's best friends growing up has a brother who was absolutely brilliant. This is a guy who graduated top of his class, got a perfect score on the SAT, and went to and graduated from Harvard. Sometime into his adult life, he decided to go to the grocery store a few blocks away. Ordinarily, he walks, but he decided to drive this one particular time. He went to the store, got his stuff, and proceeded to walk home. The next morning, he went to get into his car, only to discover that it was missing from his driveway. So he filed a police report. A few days went by, and he had to go to the grocery store again. He walked like he normally does, and found his car exactly where he left it a few days before. This is a Harvard graduate. A girl I knew in high school needed a piece of paper, so she turned on the computer and printed one out. I did this, and I still feel smart about it. I needed some special thesis, archival, acid-free whatever paper to print my thesis that goes into the library. There was one printer on campus with the special paper, but when I printed there, one page with a complex graph would crash the printer out of memory. I asked the printing desk there if I could just have some paper from the tray to print it in my office printer. It worked there with the plain paper, and they said no, I couldn't do that. I proceeded to print a single-page, empty document with as many copies as the number of pages my thesis had. They then gave me the stack of printed paper that I needed. Probably the ink in my printer wasn't compatible for long-term storage, but I doubt anyone is ever going to read it anyway. Working at IT support, a woman with a PhD in virology calls up. Her keys on her keyboard keep sticking. We do the standard troubleshooting but couldn't fix it, so I went to her desk. What was the cause of the keys sticking? Well, Miss PhD was eating a whole gosh darn pineapple over her keyboard. My doctor wife, resident at the top university hospital, constantly misuses the words door and window interchangeably. It's a riot. Sweetie, please close the door. Where are you going? The door. Oh crap, I meant the window. This is practically daily. That's fine. The narrator constantly mixes up left and right as well as east and west when he's giving directions, even though he knows full well what each of those directions means if they're given to him. Some of our brains have weird mental blocks on them. About 5 years ago, I got one of those motion-activated air fresheners and put it on my dresser. It wasn't until I got up the next morning that I discovered it was lined up directly at eye level where I got out of bed. I effectively booby-trapped my room against myself. My sister-in-law is a molecular biologist. Her level of genius is astounding. She put herself through school via scholarships, but made pocket money working at Ponderosa. One day she was changing the oil in the fryer and set the old hot grease tub on the floor and proceeded to step in it. She literally cooked her own foot. It took several skin grafts, but mostly looks normal now. So whenever someone does something stupid in our family, we say they cooked their foot. Professors with all kinds of degrees who've written renowned books or papers, but can't figure out how to make a video play on the projector instead of on the monitor. My father told me a story about his father. My grandfather was a brilliant chemical engineer working for Procter & Gamble. He actually led the team that figured out how to make liquid Tide. One day he came home, scooped himself some ice cream, put chocolate chips on top, and put it in the microwave. He was surprised that the ice cream melted rather than the chocolate. I stuck my hand in a pot of boiling water. My brain just stopped working for that second, apparently. I took a sauté pan out of the oven without a mitt. We should start our own cooking show. 10 out of 10 would watch. Tonight on Scald and Burn, we need someone to play the long-suffering, ridiculously hot standby medic. You in? My friend is standing in line at Target and has a 9-volt battery and a penny in his pocket. The two make contact and naturally the penny gets hot. He pulls the 9-volt out of his pocket and looks at it as if he's never seen this object before. He sticks his tongue on it, shocks himself, pulls it away and looks at it, and then does it again. Pulls it away, looks at it, and does it a third time. The cashier just stared at him like someone let a monkey out of a zoo. A lot of smart people I know are just terrible with money. I know people with 4.0 GPAs and high-paying jobs that are borderline bankrupt because they spend every dollar they have trying to keep up with the high rollers who run their company. Like, these are smart people, but incredibly insecure as well, and that's just a terrible combination. I made peanut butter cookies last night and I forgot to put in all of the dry ingredients. So you made peanut butter soup. My best friend has a genius-level IQ. He was in the top 10 of my graduating class and has nearly a 4.0 GPA studying chemical engineering. I once saw him look right down the barrel of a loaded shotgun. I did this with a champagne bottle I was trying to open. The cork popped, bounced off my forehead, and then ricocheted off the ceiling. I had a round welt on my forehead for a day or two. I'm not a genius. I did that as a best man at my buddy's wedding. Made the toast, got the bottle. Wait, how's this thing work? Never opened champagne before. Maybe I'll put it on the table and look down to see what the problem is. Bang! Mother fricker, right above my eye. Play it cool, play it cool. Maybe no one saw. No, they all did. Well, I said no wedding is complete unless blood is spilled. Just didn't think it would be mine. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Well, my really smart wife married me, but I'll forgive her for that one. A friend of mine used a variant of this on his wife. While shopping for curtains, he said, "Well, since I clearly have better taste than you," and she interrupted, "You do not?" "Sure I do. I married you, and you married me." According to him, she just sort of flopped her jaw like a fish for a bit. He said it's the only time he's ever won an argument with her. Guys, he's been married for 15 plus years at this point. You do not pull this card after a month or even 10. My old lady of 7 years just finished up her master's in accounting. She roasted a chicken yesterday, and as the timer rang, I yelled to her to remember to use a hot pad to take the lid off the roaster pan, because like the pan, the lid handle is hot. I get a sarcastic, "No duh," back from her. I watch from a mirror with a good angle of her, as she takes the pan out with 2 hot pads on the side handles of the pan. She then sets the pan on top of the stove, puts the hot pads back in the drawer, then grabs the handle on the lid of the pan. She burned her hand again, dropped the pot lid to the floor loudly, and then ran to the living room to see if I was laughing. I was. Dumbest smart person I know. I love her. I feel like I could have renamed this video "Stupid Things That People with High Academic Degrees Do," and it would have been nearly just as applicable, to be honest. I was going to bake cookies for my 20th year high school reunion, but I encountered a problem. I explained this problem to my fiancé, like so. I was going to make cookies for my reunion, but it ended up that I couldn't. Why? Well, your mum gave me that box of cookie cutters that has over 100 cookie cutters, and I was going to make cookies in the 9 and 5 shape for the class of 1995. It has 1 through 8, but no 9. At this point, he just stared at me because he thought I'd come to a realization on my own, which I hadn't, by the way. I said, "What? You just have to turn the number 6 upside down and it's a 9. A long, blank stare from me. The number 6 upside down is the number 9. You did realize that, didn't you? He cracked up when he figured out that I never realized this. I have a PhD. That's okay, my mom is a programmer for Boeing and she complained that her heated blanket was still too hot. Turns out the number 7 looks like an L upside down and she thought it was on the low setting. I have a relative, cousin of my aunt, who has a doctorate in engineering and made a ton of money in petroleum engineering. Yet, over the years, she sent a large fraction of it to Nigerian scammers. Even more interestingly, he started doing this before the internet, when they just sent snail mail letters to people, and has sent it to the same Nigerian family over the decades. His way of supporting Africa, I guess? But then this person also didn't believe we landed on the moon or that the Holocaust happened, so there's that. A girl I went to high school with went to the same university as me. She was top 5 in our graduating class and hasn't gotten lower than a 3.8 in 2 years of college, including biochemistry and organic chemistry. One summer day we were out at a bonfire and she had a hood on because, and I quote, "Don't moon rays make you paler?" My grandfather has a PhD in computer science, one of the early ones. He was on the team that developed the fingerprint computer that ended the days of using a magnifying glass to match prints. The original computer now lives at the Smithsonian. It was snowing out and he said he was grilling steaks. I thought he was on the outside porch. I looked outside and he was not there. I found him in the basement using a huge gas grill. It took several minutes to explain to him why this was not a good idea. Mine was the stupidest thing I've ever done. It was pretty embarrassing. I was leaving my flat and I was talking to a girl on my uni course. As I got to the door to exit the building, I noticed someone outside and was going to let them come inside before I left. After about 6 or 7 seconds of me just standing there, the girl asked me what was up, and I told her that the person outside must have been having trouble getting inside. She then pointed out that it was my reflection. In conclusion, I'm as stupid as a dog. I also just blasted myself full in the face with some air freshener because I thought the nozzle was pointed the other way. I am now blind. My friend turned 20 one day, and we were talking about his birthday. I proceeded to comment, "Wow, you've been a teenager for 20 years. Yeah, my friends don't let me live that one down. I told my sister, who was turning 25, that she was halfway to 30. Spent an incredible amount of time and effort nervously trying to figure out why an almost new and very expensive oscilloscope won't turn on. The reason was that someone had toggled the switch on one of the built-in power strips on the lab bench to off. We were getting ready for dinner one night and we were kind of in a rush to get it done. Whatever we were making, it required bread. Well, the only bread we had was frozen at the time, so we had to quickly defrost it. So my mother randomly yelled for my oldest brother, who happens to be the smartest out of all of us, to go get it from the freezer and bring it to the kitchen. He delivered the frozen bread to the kitchen and our mum had our hands full. So she told him, "Take the bread tie off and put it in the microwave." So he takes the tie off and puts the tie in the microwave and sets it to defrost. Not even 30 seconds later, he starts saying, Mum, the bread tie's on fire." Turns out my brother thought "it" meant the bread tie and not the frozen loaf of bread. In conclusion, smart brother put bread tie in the microwave to defrost and it caught on fire. That man did exactly what his mother told him to do and is beyond reproach. In a military court of tribunal, he would be 100% exonerated and I won't hear a bad word against him. My friend Kevin went to Caltech and works for JPL. He's an actual rocket scientist, literally one of the smartest people I can think of. When we were in our early 20s, he had to take his brand new Honda Civic back to the dealership after 2 weeks of ownership because he filled it with diesel. Afterwards, I asked him, "Isn't the diesel nozzle incompatible with the standard gas tanks?" His response was, "It's not. It wasn't easy, but I made it work." My friend is a geneticist, smart guy all around. A few months ago, he spent 10 minutes trying to push open the door in his kitchen, and eventually his hand just went through it, and he gashed his arm and ended up getting a bunch of stitches. If he had pulled the door instead, it would have opened. I travel a lot for work and I'm going to London later this month. One of my girlfriend's best friends is an NICU nurse, saving the lives of premature babies every day, and has forgotten more about biology and anatomy than I've ever known. She asked what language they speak in London and if I was going to visit the Eiffel Tower if I got some free time. This one is about me. I'm a senior in engineering, being paid to do some fancy research that we hope will easily eradicate third world diseases. My dad has always managed my finances and never really taught me much. I just got a credit card and had a $500 limit, spent $492 in a month, and got confused when during the next calendar month, after the statement, my credit card was still being declined. I thought the limit reset every month regardless of if you paid your balance. It just made sense to me. When I called my dad asking why my credit card hadn't reset yet, he laughed at me for a solid hour and told all his business partners. I laughed it off as being an engineer and not a finance person like him, but my lack of real-world experience with economics or money is also sad. I'm a living case of why we should have useful life skills classes in high school. This girl I was kind of seeing at the time asked me if I wanted to watch a movie, so we go up to her room and she popped in Elf. She turned to me and asked, "Wait, can you watch this movie since you're Jewish?" She has a 4.0 GPA and is going to law school next year. Also, when I eventually told her I was a virgin, she asked me if I had ever had a stiffy. I was 19. Not seen directly, but I heard the professor tell these two stories. This man is an expert with nanomaterials and just an all-round physics rock star, and yet I have not one, but two stories about him. The first, the professor began watching karate movies and became a fan. Soon, he begins to wonder if he can reproduce some of the feats he's seen various martial artists perform on film. "I'm a physicist," he says. "I can do this." So he gets a stack of a few cinder blocks and tries to break them with his fist. He shattered almost every bone in his hand. The second story, once his home's water heater stopped heating water. "I'm a physicist," he says again. "I can do this." After all, he reasons, the water heater is just a really big resistor submerged in a tank of water with some plumbing attached to it all. Why not repair it himself? The basement cleanup cost him a few $1,000s plus the cost of a new water heater and professional installation. I work in a hospital with some of the most talented neurosurgeons on the West Coast. These are the folks that are flown out to Johns Hopkins, Columbia University, or India and China to give presentations to the world's best in the medical field. Many of them still type with just their index fingers. They can't spell for crap, and this is just a regular thing with doctors. One of them couldn't figure out how to open his coffee. You just pull out the stirrer that doubles as the plug to keep your coffee warm and prevent spills. He eventually just gave up and took the lid off. Weekly scheduling issues when they want to get a friend's family in next week when they're booked for 6 months out. "Sorry, doctor, you're booked out. If you wanted to have complete control over your schedule, you should have gone for more money in at a for-profit hospital. That's why your friends can do it at their hospital. This is a public hospital. No one jumps the line because they're richer or have the hookup. Almost half of them don't even know how to really use a computer for anything more than Facebook. Their assistants handle everything. These are usually the over 50 crowd, and most of the younger surgeons don't have this issue. I'm always impressed at how many doctors are incredibly unhealthy in their habits. Most of them smoke, do substances, wolf down double bacon cheeseburgers twice a day, rarely exercise, and hardly even go to their own doctor. We had one orthopedist, highly respected and very talented, park in a handicap spot because he thought that symbol applied to him because he treats all the people in the wheelchairs. I'd much prefer to think he was being a selfish prick, he's actually a nice guy, and was feigning being dumb to get a nice parking spot. We didn't push the issue. The thing is, he has his own reserved parking spot. What's the most ridiculous thing you've seen in court? So, I was the intern for a judge. Most of his cases were related to substances, DUI, or working girls. One day, a woman is brought up from jail for a hearing, substance-related. She's a regular in the courtroom and is in one of the substance dependency programs. The judge asked, "Tell me what happened."
"Well, I was leaving the methadone clinic and this guy asked if I wanted some fire-ass dope."
He asked what?
"If I wanted some fire-ass dope."
A lawyer whispers to her. "Some fire-ass dope?" asked the judge.
"Yes, Your Honor, some fire-ass dope."
From here, it turned into something very comparable to the Super Troopers' littering and moment, while we all tried to avoid laughing. Skipping ahead, "I take it you used it and that's why you're here."
"I did, and it was damn good."
I was installing furniture and equipment in a courthouse office. I'm walking into the building with all of my tools, waiting in line to be cleared by security. The man in front of me steps up to the metal detectors and grabs one of the baskets you use to empty your pockets. Into said basket, the man places his watch, his necklace, wallet, keys, cell phone, bag of green herb, and a gat. He then casually walks through the metal detector and looks back to the officer to get his belongings. The 3 officers and several people standing around are stunned. After a few seconds, the officer with the basket says, put your hands behind your back? The guy didn't fight them, he just refused to believe he had done anything wrong. He was there for a substance-related offense. I was locked up in a county jail for probation violation. They let inmates out at midnight on their release date, and they have to check out at the window by the holding cell I was in at the time to get their belongings. So an inmate walks up to the window to acquire his street clothes and gets the okay to go into the bathroom and change into them. Naturally comes back to the window to sign his paperwork and be on his way. Nope, he digs into his pocket and a joint falls onto the ground. A deputy was called in, patted him down, and put him in handcuffs and took him away. These are the same deputies who missed my car keys in my pocket when patting me down a day prior. I could only imagine how that guy must have felt. I'm a legal secretary. I used to assist attorneys who practice juvenile dependency. We were funded by the county to defend indigent parents whose children were removed by CPS. A mother came to court with a tattoo, "Frick the CPS," on her neck. A client, the defendant's father, was on the witness stand being questioned. The attorney asked, "How much green herb do you use currently?" And the client replied, "Well, not as much as I'd like." Cue facepalm. Well, you could very loosely interpret that answer as still being none, but yeah, it's not a very helpful statement. Apparently cases involving CPS are a hotbed for strange behavior, as a few more experienced people have written in. It's never a dull moment. I had a coworker whose client declared to a judge that she didn't see an issue with her husband driving drunk with the kids, because when he was sober, his driving was terrifying, but when drunk, his driving was better than her own. To which the judge ordered her to take a UA, and last I heard, she was positive for a whole lot of substances ending in etamine. I have a friend that does volunteer work that lets her sit in on a lot of CPS-related court cases. She said the best one was when a birth mother, who got her daughter taken away due to her being a smack addict, argued that she was a better fit than the woman hoping to adopt the girl because I breastfed her for 18 months, and I read an article that says kids bond with their mother when they're breastfed. During my court reporting internship, I met a really nice bailiff. Sometimes attorneys have to approach the judge for a sidebar conversation that's supposed to be unheard by the jury. But because court is boring, attorneys having secret whisper arguments with a judge seems fascinating to a jury. This bailiff would distract them by playing Marvin Gaye on his phone and dancing around like a Motown backup singer. The guy loved his job and went above and beyond his duties. In a case where someone was robbed by 2 guys, the judge asked the victim if those 2 guys were in the courtroom. Before the victim could answer, those morons lifted their hands, as in, "Hey, we're here!" An undressed man taking off with a city bus getting charged for Grand Theft Auto. As GTA requires some element of intent to profit, this was transparently ridiculous and got taken off the charge. Florida man? After her 3rd DUI, my elderly and disabled neighbor was being let off with a suspended license and a hefty fine. Thinking she could do better, she attempted to negotiate, loudly and aggressively, with the judge, using her infinite wisdom of prime television law shows. She walked out with jail time. Most of my clients are mentally ill. I do mostly civil and criminal mental health related work. In my jurisdiction, an application by a civilly but involuntarily detained person for a review of their detention must be heard within 2 weeks of the application, no matter what. So I'm often in the position of managing clients who are unwell, including experiencing psychotic episodes, among other things. Direct examinations can be very interesting. My most memorable board review involved my client giving an impromptu demonstration of how they came to be arrested under the Mental Health Act. There was feces involved. Just another day at the office. Sounds like a crappy job. Sorry, I had to say it. But God bless you for providing legal representation to those who need it most. A defense attorney was tased and tackled by federal marshals after the acquittal of his client. He had been insufferable for the entire trial and threw a fit when the marshals tried to bring his client into custody. Although his client had been acquitted in that trial, he was awaiting trial for a separate crime in another state. Thus, he was supposed to be taken into custody and transferred. His attorney shouted at the judge and tried to block the marshals from accessing his client, and ended up getting tased in the process. His conduct during the trial had been outrageous. So much so that the chief judge sought to block the guy from federal practice in the state. He had pro-hocked in and pursued sanctions in his home state. I saw a woman who wanted to plead guilty and not guilty. When asked by the judge, she explained that she did turn left in front of the other car and failed to yield, but she didn't mean to hit anyone, so she was guilty and not guilty. In the matter of the state versus the woman on the plead guilty and not guilty, we the jury find the defendant no. Schrodinger's mom. I was there to contest a $250 ticket, which was issued in error when the cop ticketed everyone in one lot for parking illegally on private property. Mine was the only car actually allowed to be there. So the guy who went up before me had been ticketed for parking illegally in front of a handicap-only meter, which has a red top in DC. He had brought pictures to show that there were no signs near where he had parked to indicate that red top meters are exclusively for handicap use. He lived in Maryland, he said, and was not aware of that DC law. Since there were no signs, he argued that he couldn't have known. From what the judge was saying, it seemed like he was about to excuse the ticket, when the guy, I can only guess thinking that this would somehow help him, threw in that he was in the Maryland Police Department, and as such, he was a very upstanding citizen who would never break the law knowingly. The judge immediately ordered him to pay the full ticket amount and advised that since he was a DC cop, he should probably make sure to familiarize himself with the laws he was supposed to enforce. I wonder if anyone's ever accidentally discharged a weapon in a civilian space, and then tried to get off the charges by saying, "It's okay, I'm in the army and it was a mistake this time." Same energy. A friend of mine works for the state's crime lab, mostly working kits to prove the unspeakable act and DNA tests, and she's frequently called as an expert witness to many unspeakable act trials in her jurisdiction. Once she said she was called to be a witness for an aggravated case, and had to explain how and where they found evidence on the victim. She starts explaining that they found traces of his DNA inside the victim and the correct term for a part of the female anatomy. And the middle-aged male judge stops her mid-sentence and goes, "Now, wait a minute, you said that word. What is that part?" And she had to explain in excruciating detail to a full court and jury what that part was, because the judge had never heard of one of those before. Yikes. I work with judges, and I'd bet he was trying to discreetly tell her to explain it to the jury. Since they have jurors from all walks of life with varying levels of education, judges, at least the ones I work with, go out of their way to kindly dumb it down for jurors who might be too embarrassed or timid to ask for an explanation, but need one to understand the witness. Self-depreciation is a good way to do that. To add to this exact same question would be the next one out of any experienced lawyer's mouth as well. Never underestimate the jury's ability to misunderstand testimony. Somebody in that box would have heard Volvo and thought the splooge was found in the girl's car. Lawyer here. Female client shows up for court to be sentenced to probation on a minor charge, green herb or shoplifting, I can't remember, wearing what looks like a one-piece, bright yellow bathing suit with flip-flops and a yellow fishnet wrap over the bathing suit. I held my breath when the case was called. The judge did the sentencing and then, "And next time, don't show up for court looking like you're going to the beach." The client, deadpan as if confused, said, "But I am going to the beach." Did he then say, "No, we said you're appearing before the bench"? Nothing too terribly crazy. There was the lady who fake fainted during a hearing when the attorneys were at a sidebar. Like she held onto the chair as she got on her knees and threw herself on the ground like a 2-year-old having a tantrum. The judge and attorneys glanced over her way and continued speaking. Then there was the time I told my client we would lose about 11 billion times, but she still insisted on going to trial. And shocker, we lost. So when I took the group around the corner to tell them the news, she started sobbing and slid down the wall all dramatic, while her new guy threatened to beat up the other party. At a restraining order hearing, some guy decided it would be a good idea to threaten to kill his wife in the hallway. My client heard about it and told me. I told the bailiff and left. Apparently the bailiff told the judge. The guy was immediately handcuffed and thrown in a holding cell, and I was called back to court about it. Apparently he didn't really mean to threaten to kill her. All that bravado went away real quick once steel cuffs hit his wrist. The first appearance in criminal court, the bailiff missed the wooden block while using the gavel, and shattered the glass covering the tabletop. We had to stop the hearings and used file folders to sweep up all of these chunks of glass before a defendant cut themselves or smuggled some glass into the jail. That bailiff was teased about breaking the glass for years. And another story I heard but didn't witness, a criminal hearing. The victim's father jumps across the barrier to attack the defendant. Bailiff jumps in and the judge can't see what's happening, so he pulls out his personal piece. All attention immediately goes toward the bench, with the judge standing there packing heat. I believe bailiffs took the judge's gat and got control over the father and defendant. Unsurprisingly, someone ran against the judge in the next election and won. Most other people just say ridiculous things rather than doing ridiculous things. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. We represent what has to be a billionaire and his companies. He's like mid-80s. We had a settlement conference and the guy exclaimed to the judge that he was too fricking old and too fricking rich to put up with this bullcrap. The judge threatens to throw the partner, I'm a low-level associate, into jail. The amount of money this guy pays us, my partner isn't backing down and basically doubles up what the client said. People calm down. The partner tells every new associate that story within an hour. Said partner once also crapped his pants on the way to a hearing once after having eaten 4 protein bars for breakfast. He was also very proud of his subsequent commando court appearance. I watched a guy sitting in court fall asleep, start snoring, and then suddenly burst out this lion's roar yell. The judge calls him up and asked if he was on anything. No, Your Honor, just tired from working overnight. It was 3 p.m. His probation officer decided to do a pee in a cup test. Being the only male in the courtroom, I was elected the one to take him to the courtroom and witness him pee in a cup. He tested positive for 2 to 3 things. He was sanctioned 5 nights in jail for lying to the judge and had to restart the program from the beginning. He was pretty close to being on the last step. Another time on revocation docket, we were sitting waiting on the jail defendants to be brought up. We were filling out some continuous motions and we hear this loud hiss and exhale. The lone guy in the galley had decided to take the biggest hit off his vape, right there in court. The judge was furious and ordered him up to the bench. He started crying, stating it went off in his hand. The vape cloud was the full length of the 15-foot bench. He went to jail for contempt. We're not sure what he was there for in the first place, though. Covering a trial for a local radio station. Man was being tried for murder. The victim had faked his own death 2 years earlier and had been hiding in the woods since. So essentially killed a person already thought to be dead. Highlight of the trial was when the Commonwealth attorney asked the defendant how the victim ended up being stabbed. The defendant said, "He was drunk and fell on my knife." The attorney asked, "How drunk do you have to be to fall on a knife 17 times?" Was this the inspiration for the cell block tango in the musical Chicago? Or had the guy been listening to show tunes on the way to court and got unknowingly inspired? I was a witness for the prosecution in a case where the defense attorney was probably doing his first jury trial. He kept doing crazy TV lawyer stuff. Multiple times when he asked me a question, he yelled, "Are you aware you're under oath?" He did the same thing when my wife testified. They had to clear the courtroom at least 4 times for the judge to yell at him. The guy actually did it, but his lawyer was so incompetent he just didn't have a chance. I talked to him years later. He was getting an outside lawyer to appeal the conviction. It was a court-martial, so good luck with that. Not a lawyer. My grandma threatened, while inside the courtroom, to sue her lawyer for misrepresentation. Then she stormed out after not getting the result she wanted. She's a bit kooky. I was a juror. There was a horrible expert witness testifying for the defense on a murder trial. Everything he said was objected to and sustained. The prosecutor started to question him, and he couldn't answer a single question. He must have somehow triggered Siri on his phone, and it said, "It's okay if you don't understand." Expert witnesses have such a low bar to be considered experts, it's almost criminal. My dad is doing a bunch of expert witness and case review for the College of Physicians. He accredits hospitals around the world and he's won numerous awards. He is the top of his field. He was an expert witness against a woman suing another doctor, and that woman's expert witness was someone who had not practiced medicine in 3 years after no one in the hospital would work with the expert because they were dangerously incompetent. The expert was also working as a full-time real estate agent since leaving the hospital 3 years before the case. Back when I first started, I was in court with my father-in-law, also an attorney, and he was arguing with the judge and took issue with something the judge had said, by saying, "That sounds like something a Yale man would say." The judge asked, "How did you know I went to Yale?" "I saw your ring when you were picking your nose." Yeah, it's good to practice with a bunch of old country lawyers. Just today, I got in a heated argument in court with opposing counsel, and we both had pretty raised voices and her client started to cry. So the opposing counsel said, "No, it's okay, this is just how we argue, we still love each other," and came over and gave me a hug. The judge didn't say a word. Another time I was arguing that a guy should not get probation because he was refusing to take random substance screenings. He explained that he wasn't refusing, he just thought we were wasting our efforts because he'd just admit he smoked green herb all the time. Then there was the criminal defendant who came to court wearing a hoodie that said, "I came to F crap up," and the lady who pulled into the courthouse parking lot beside the sheriff's department in front of the canine officer who was standing with his dog in the next parking space with a veritable pharmacopoeia in her car.
The amount of people I've seen show up to court in pajamas and other ridiculous outfits is astounding.
I had a friend who worked in family court during law school, and she reported a guy showing up to a child support hearing wearing a shirt with dollar signs and money all over it, claiming he couldn't afford anything. Similarly, my client wore a fur coat to a garnishment hearing. She didn't have money, but she did have ratty old fur. I was an intern working for an attorney, family law. Annoyingly nasty divorce, leaving the courtroom, opposing party leaves first and we hold back a bit before leaving. Standard operating procedure. We go down the stairs and around the corner towards the exit, and what do you know, it's the disgruntled former husband with a barrage of colourful insults, and he's cranked the volume knob to about 12 out of 10. Enter me, about 6 foot, 175 pounds, clearly working for an attorney and in notably better shape than him. Confident he wouldn't try anything as there are cops everywhere, and one approaching to investigate the disturbance. I feel emboldened and step between my client and the opposing party and begin to say,
"Hey, calm down now, man. Now is not the time," or
"Mother fricker punched me in the gut." I was not expecting that crap. I doubled over immediately. He got tackled by the nearest officer, cuffed and dragged away presumably to the jail next door. The partner is clearly trying to contain her laughter and our client is on one knee asking if I'm okay. Meanwhile, I'm dying of embarrassment and trying not to vomit up my breakfast. Heard this from a co-worker who was sometimes in the courtroom. I can't remember what the original offense was to bring the defendant to court, but the guy was really immature and a complete butthole. Wait for it. If there was a moment where the judge wasn't looking, he'd turn to his family in the gallery and smirk at them, just being a complete pain and belligerent all through the trial. Flipped off the judge at one point. The judge said something he didn't like, so he turned around, dropped trow in the middle of the trial, and spread his butt cheeks apart. The judge got a full view of this guy's butthole and ball bag. He and his family all had the audacity to gasp and heckle when contempt of court got added to the docket. I love the idea of a court going full-blown sitcom audience, boos, cheers, and laughs. Let's get it all in there and make a real-life Judge Judy courtroom. I'm a family law attorney, so I see a lot of people at their worst, but one case was absolutely disgusting. I originally started out taking some pro bono cases, where the courts specifically linked attorneys up with people with disabilities who could not afford attorneys. Generally, these people were very nice, and I enjoyed working with them to get them the help they needed. But this woman, she was one complete piece of garbage. I didn't generally get much information prior to meeting with these clients, and so I went into most initial meetings blind. When I walked into the room, I was initially confused, because the woman didn't look like she applied to the program. She had the Michael Kors purse, an Apple Watch, and a Burberry trench coat. Keep in mind that one of the major factors for getting my help was intransigence. I got some information after the case that she continually used a significantly minor disability to get free legal aid to, in essence, harass her ex-husband. We began talking and she told me about how her ex was mistreating her children. I listened to her story and it actually made a lot of sense. Her son, who was nearly 18, actually left her ex's home to come live with her, and her daughter had made a 911 call, which I read the transcript of. So I looked at the file and was a little confused to see that this woman had lost all visitation rights to both her kids. This was a big deal because it almost never happens. Even substance-addled parents generally get supervised visitation. She had nothing. When I asked what happened, she told me that the judge was corrupt. I knew the judge well, so I told her that I didn't believe that was the case. She then proceeded to regale me with information about how the judge was in a secret lesbian relationship with her ex's now wife. Once that was out, it was all she ever talked about. She had pieces written online about it, and she actively told me time after time that she could prove it. She talked about it more than she talked about her kids. Fast forward a couple of weeks before the hearing, and I get a stack of printed text messages from the opposing attorney with hundreds, if not thousands of texts between her and the daughter she was to have absolutely no contact with by court order. The texts went from bad to worse. The daughter was 8th grade or so, and it was clear that the mum was manipulating the daughter to skip school and have secret rendezvous where the mother would buy her expensive clothing. So that was definitely a major strike against her, and was most likely enough to deny any request she was seeking. But there was so much more, including racial slurs, bigoted generalities, and constant coaching to leave her ex's care. The worst, though, was a text chain where the daughter actually called her stepmom a rug muncher, which clearly indicated her mum had been feeding her the secret lesbian relationship ideals. The daughter had said that the dad was drunk, and the mum replied something vague about how the stepmom wasn't getting any that night with her dad being drunk. The daughter asked what she meant, and the mum, to her 8th grade daughter, replied, "Broke wiener." We lost well before the hearing happened. At the hearing, the judge, different from the one the mum hated, did what every reasonable judge would do and denied the request. At which point, the mother stood up and started yelling in front of a full courtroom that everyone there was in on the lesbo bonanza. She was held in contempt and ordered to pay a fee for every day the other child wasn't returned to the father's care. She said that she didn't give a flying frick and she would just pay the fee. At this point, the judge said, "Well, if that's the case, I will annotate the file to inform court admin that you should be able to pay for your own attorney going forward." I lost the hearing, but damn did that loss feel good. What's a bad thing everyone should experience at least once?
For many men, a finger in the butt. But for good reasons. Get your prostates checked, guys.
Being humiliated for being a butthole. Some people need this to happen more than once. Poverty. It will make you appreciate what you have at least a little. Everyone should experience firsthand how money can destroy close relationships and how quickly it can happen. I was dating a girl who had a lifelong friend with bad credit, like really bad. She wanted to buy a new car but couldn't get approved for a loan and asked my friend to co-sign. Then it turned out her credit was so bad she couldn't even use a co-signer. They wouldn't even issue a loan with her name anywhere on a form. So she had the idea, "Could you buy the car or get the loan and I'll just make the monthly payments until it's paid off?" I told her, "Don't do this, there's a reason why she has bad credit." Well, she didn't listen and bought the car for her friend. Her friend made exactly one payment to her, and the next month, nothing. She started ditching phone calls, and then we find out she moved out of her apartment. Suddenly, this girl's family, who my friend had known for 15 years, is pretending they don't know where she lives and has no way of getting in contact with her. A couple more weeks and an envelope with half a car payment, 3 weeks late at this point, shows up stuck under my girlfriend's doormat. The next payment comes due, and nothing. So now my girlfriend is making the payments every month on a car she hasn't seen in months. Her friend, who promised to make payments, is a payment and a half behind, and it's only been 3 months. The one thing she listened to me about was she kept a key to the car, so we had the idea we'd find the car and take it, since it was legally and morally her car anyway. So we spent I don't even know how many weeks every night driving around for hours, hitting this girl's hangout spots, friends' houses, family houses, etc., until one night we find the car parked in front of her father's condo. My girlfriend jumped in, took the car and drove it to another friend's house, who was going to put it in his garage for a while until things cooled off. We weren't 2 minutes gone before bad credit chick is blowing up her pager, yeah, it was that long ago, having suddenly remembered her number. Anyway, long story short, this was a lifelong friendship. And this chick barely even hesitated at the chance to steal a fricking car from someone who was trying to help her. I've been lucky enough that nothing like this has ever happened to me, but I have seen seemingly loving and normal families destroyed overnight in squabbles over money, namely family wills. Money can apparently ruin lifelong relationships, and we should take that into consideration when dealing with that. Minor car accident, so that you understand, even if no one is hurt, how quickly it can happen. How hard the cars jolt on collision, and how much hassle it is to get through insurance. It's happened where 2 drivers have driven into me in the past. I drove with real caution for months afterwards, and I'm extremely attentive to the road as a result. I pretty much totaled my first car when I was 17. No injuries, but it was my fault and I lost my license for 6 months. It wasn't my first offense. Fast forward 30 years and my driving record is spotless since then. While teaching my daughter to drive, I tried to impress upon her the hassle, inconvenience, and embarrassment of even a minor traffic accident, especially if it's your fault. I told her that she'd never truly understand the feeling unless it happened to her. Then a year later, it did. She was cut off by a truck on a wet road and wound up rear-ending him. She was cited for following too close, which was bullcrap, but whatever, and ended up totaling her car. She's mentioned many times since then how her attitude towards driving safety has changed. I'm afraid to say it, but I think in both of our cases, having a minor accident was just the thing we needed to understand emotional driving and avoiding dumb risks and defensive driving. It made us better drivers, although I'd hardly recommend it.
I think it's important to get used or ripped off once by a supposed friend. My son, when a teen, would believe anyone. Any story, any hard luck tale. Then came the day a friend sold him fishing poles for way too much money and dropped them off. They didn't have any reels on them. My son was so hurt and teed off. I felt bad for him, but he never forgot the lesson. Be careful who you call a friend. Met this girl, talked to her on the internet for years. Never really went anywhere, but talking or writing to her became a part of my regular routine. For so long it felt like I knew her, even though in reality, of course, I actually didn't. One day she hits me up talking about how she desperately needs money and is looking to sell this gift card someone got her. I think nothing of it and say, sure. I take it home and go online to activate it, at which point I find it was obviously stolen. I go on Facebook and see that she's updated her status. Sucker. Take public transportation. I know a crap ton of people who've never taken it. I personally find it kind of soothing, except when I'm taking the bus home from work in the morning, i.e. right now. If I could drive, I'd be at home and in my bed. Coming from major cities with great public transport, this is so weird to me. I couldn't imagine getting around by car. Having a terrible roommate or flatmate, it really makes you appreciate future living situations, especially with a significant other. The moment of panic and the lingering feeling in the pit of your stomach when you're driving and narrowly avoid what could have been a disaster. Not even necessarily your fault, things like braking for a deer or a car not seeing you in their blind spot and changing lanes into you and you have to hit the horn. Something that reminds you that no matter how much time we spend driving and how easy it usually is, vehicles are freaking dangerous and you don't want to get careless. Something that reminds you why driving deserves your full attention the entire time. I was driving home from college late at night on a 2-lane highway in the middle of nowhere. A huge buck appeared in front of me to the left. I only saw him for literally a tenth of a second. He was in the beginnings of a jump, rearing up on his hind legs, his front hooves over the top of my hood. He jumped clear over my car. Had it not been so dark out, I probably would have seen his ball bag pass right in front of my driver's window. My heart was probably at 170 beats per minute for the next hour afterwards. I don't think I blinked. Spent the entire time scanning everything in my field of view. Longest drive of my life. Being humiliated for behaving like a jerk. Some people need this to happen more than once. Agreed. That moment of self-awareness when you realize, no, you're not being funny, or the other person isn't in the wrong, but you are being a jerk, that's humbling. You learn to be a better person from the experience. Unless someone actually is a jerk, then they just double down and assume everyone else is the jerk.
When Borders was closing, they didn't allow returns. This was on numerous giant banners all over the store, so it's not like they were hiding it. There was a long line checking out, and this guy was yelling at the clerk about a $3 CD and moaning about why he couldn't return it if he didn't like it. A normal jerk, whatever. Then he goes, "This is why you people are losing your jobs. You don't know how to keep the customers happy." And several people yelled and chewed him out so badly he dropped his crap and left. Seriously, what the frick, man? I hope I actually helped with that one. This was your informative piece on why not to be a jerk, from the sister channel of Am I the Jerk? And yes, I did write a quarter page worth of stories purely for a lame gag and a plug for our sister channel. You're welcome.
Working in retail and/or fast food service. Working those jobs really changes your perspective on what's an appropriate way to behave in those environments, and shows you that many people have no idea how to behave appropriately in them.
Cashier and bagger here, you have no idea just how rude, lazy, inconsiderate, nasty, and just downright mean people can be until you work in a customer service job. It really makes you appreciate genuinely nice people a whole lot more and shows you just how many people aren't raised right. I can tell stories for days about the crap I see on a daily basis. For example, one time I had a lady complain to my office manager, co-manager, and store manager, I was on a register that day, saying that my customer service was awful and that someone should have trained me better. All because she didn't have enough money to pay for her stuff, so I had to decline her. Luckily, two of them saw the whole thing and politely told the lady that she was a moron and I'd done nothing wrong. The next customer in line also saw the whole thing and told them, my managers, that I was the sweetest cashier at the store. Being sick and having someone take care of you teaches you how to take care of others when they're down and the efforts and sacrifices you make. Also, being sick away from home, i.e. no one to take care of you. Once you've lain in a bed sick as a dog all alone, you appreciate everyone who's there for you. A relationship with a superficial or pretentious person. It makes you appreciate humble people even more. My first girlfriend was so standoffish, unaffectionate, and just plain rude. We were together for a year before we stopped talking to each other. At the time, I thought that was just what a relationship was, until I met my second girlfriend, who was so incredibly charming, warm, and affectionate. I didn't consider the first relationship as a waste of a year because it made me appreciate my second one so much more. Indifference from complete strangers when you're in a time of need. It seems oddly specific, but can really be translated in many settings, from being stranded and trying to hitchhike home to begging for money for your next meal. Given some time, you realize that a lot of people are real Fs. A lot of them are simply ignoring you completely, and some will go far out of their way to help. It helps you be a better person. Agreed. I got stuck out of town once, and I missed my last bus home, and not one person I stopped would lend me their phone so I could call my mum. I was about 12 or 13 and terrified that I'd have to sleep outside and would probably end up getting stabbed or something. Even then, I remember wondering why the frick nobody would let me use their phone. I'd let a crying adolescent borrow my phone if they needed to call home. In the end, I managed to find an ancient, pea-stained payphone that still worked, and called home with the bus money I had left, but I know I was lucky in that situation. This was about 10 years ago in the Midlands, England, for those asking. I do know that people probably thought I was trying to mug them, so you don't need to tell me. Being at the mercy of someone else after you've done something to deserve getting your butt whooped. I'm not saying that everyone should experience getting bashed, but I think there are a lot of people out there with attitude problems that have never experienced the consequences of their actions. A little fear can be enough to make people think twice before behaving like buttholes to others. Again, I'm not advocating violence, but the stomach plunging into your feet because you know you done effed up by being a tool to someone that isn't taking your crap? That, I think, is a valuable lesson in how not to behave as a human being. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Failing at something, because after that, you'll grow and be able to 1. Achieve more, and 2. Use it as motivation, before 3. Knowing that failing is okay. Near-death experience. You never really appreciate the finite nature of your own life until you've breathed what you believe to be your last breath, to then have it all go black. You wake up exhilarated like nothing you've ever felt since or before, the air on your skin that you've never realized before, the feeling of air filling your lungs as you breathe, the smells and tastes are all amplified. It lasted for at least a year, and the urge to savor every little thing in life and see all the previous annoyances as petty and meaningless in the grand scheme of things. It also puts into perspective the sheer terror of death, and I believe it gave me a greater level of sympathy for those that aren't as lucky. I think everyone would be a lot less violent and warmongering if they'd felt the emptiness of death. This was one of the important tenets of Heidegger's philosophy. Basically, he was of the opinion that it's uniquely human to come to terms with your own mortality. Most of our lives are spent trying to ignore that fact, or think around it via religion. But to him, that was denying our uniquely human existence. Only through near-death experience or deep, honest introspection does one actually face that their life is finite. I never really thought about religion as a means of avoiding thinking about one's own mortality, but it definitely is for many, I suppose. For the record, it also means a great deal of other things to different people as well. Laying a beloved pet to rest. I had to say goodbye to my best friend of 15 years, my yellow Labrador, this past Monday. Worst day of my life. I don't know if I can ever have another dog, as they'll never measure up to him, and I never want to go through this again. He slept by my bedside every night, and every night I'd reach down to him and pet him before going to sleep. Now, he isn't there. Go and hug your pets, people. I have to say goodbye to my girl, tortoiseshell cat, this next weekend. She has advanced liver cancer, and it's time. She's the most amazing pet I've ever had.
I can't imagine the hole that is about to be torn through my family and that has been torn through yours. I'm sorry for your loss. Pets can be the most amazing friends.
Being broke. You appreciate what little you have and what it's like to earn hard-earned money. As someone who's been struggling to find a job for months, this really hits home. It's incredibly demoralizing and it just makes me feel like there's something wrong with me because no one will give me a job. Especially with the older generation telling me to just hand out CVs, you'll get a job really quickly, because I did. Except they refuse to accept things have changed massively. And most places will literally tell you they don't take CVs in store, and if they're hiring, you have to apply online. For the minimum wage part-time job that 300 people have already applied for in the 2 days it's been online. It sucks. And if you have no experience, you're in even worse luck. Even the most menial, low-skilled jobs won't look at your CV twice if you don't have experience. And if you can't afford to work for free to get that experience, well then frick you, peasant. I'm in a similar situation. I'm highly educated, but I can't find a job in my field. I applied for simpler jobs and jobs that require no education, but I'm overqualified for those apparently. I'm German, and here in Germany, you basically become sort of a social outcast if you don't have a job. People judge you, they call you lazy and all that stuff. I'm collecting welfare at the moment, unfortunately, which is basically taxpayer money, and people get angry at me for that. They don't seem to understand that I need the money just to survive. Just get a job, so you don't have to live off other people's money anymore. I'm getting welfare because I can't find a job. That's the whole point of it. Also, I'm obviously not living a luxurious life. I've written more than 300 applications, but no one cares and people still call me lazy. Being broke, going hungry, and being completely alone. Being a server and waiting on a table of people that treat you like a servant. Server here. Last night, a guest at a table slapped me, but he'd already written his tip, $80, and I just took it. I've never felt that way before. He was a doctor, very wealthy, and put his arm around me in a brotherly way, but he was drunk and slapped me a few times in the face. But I need the money to pay for summer classes because in Texas, you don't get student loans for the summer courses. Heartbreak or being broken up with. It's awful, but I think an important growing experience. Shoot, I went through that with my first breakup. She was the first girl I ever loved and the only one to this day. Luckily, my buddies were there for me, but it was humbling. I was a mess, I just kept crying for days. And then I had a 3-day train trip, on which I could also barely keep it together. I know men crying isn't necessarily wrong, but it just felt so unnatural. I didn't know I could feel so bad. But it was a good learning and growing experience. In an interesting or happy twist, I ended up getting back together with the same girl 6 months later, and we've been married for 5 years now. Getting stuck somewhere far from home late at night and having to find your way back. It teaches you a lot of methods that might be useful in a bind. Watching someone die. When I watched my grandmother die, I looked at my dad holding her hand. At first I thought to myself, I'm going to do the same thing too. Then I thought, someone's going to watch me die too. It was at that moment that death no longer scared me. Death started to scare me again when I buried my father. Treasure that gap between losing your grandparents and your parents. When there's no one above you in the chain of mortality, things look a lot different. My only 2 pieces of advice are, tell your parents and grandparents and children that you love them. Regularly. I almost feel bad telling people this, because there are those that it's not true for, but I did get to say it to my dad in the last conversation we had before he died. That thought brings me some peace. Also, write a will. Dealing with an estate is a pain in the butt. Dealing with an estate without a will is a major pain in the butt that no one needs. There wasn't any fighting over assets, but just tracking everything down, paying necessary taxes, paying for the funeral and disposing of various assets was incredibly difficult while I was in the middle of mourning. Thanks for your contribution to the stories. These are wise words, and I hope it's a long time before the rest of us have to put your lessons into practice. Running through fields of wheat. So naughty. Telling someone that you have a crush on how you feel. Most of the time, they won't feel the same way. You'll feel like crap, and you will get over it, and then you realize that life goes on, and that person doesn't have as much control over you. Getting used to rejection is a powerful superpower. I did, and she did not reciprocate, but we remained friends because I was carrying a torch that would break Miss Liberty's back. I didn't realize until my wife came along some years later that this friend was only staying friends because her insecurity needed constant feeding of adoration regardless of the source. When I finally confronted her with it, she walked away and I never heard from her again. One of my major steps toward adulthood. A real-life failure. There are some people who can be supported through life without properly feeling the consequences of failure. But until you actually fail at something, you won't truly succeed either.
A breakup with someone you love. I feel like it teaches you some stuff about yourself that you never really realized. But alternatively, I feel like you can learn that from losing friends or family members due to really crappy reasons. Working in hospitality and being harassed by an obnoxious customer for some minor inconvenience. You're literally asking for me to be fired, Miss Minivan. Do you realize that I'm a person with a whole life just like yours, and you want me to end up homeless because there's not enough extra ice in your drink? Your drink, which, might I add, was made by a robot and not by me. So glad I'm in a call center now. For some reason, people always specify, "Now, I'm not mad at you, you're just doing your job," before getting mad. It's so different from food service. Live on a service job or minimum wage for a year. No parents as a safety net, no rich friends you live with, no big savings account you can dig into if you really need it. Nada. None of that. Yeah, I totally know what it's like. My lawyer parents made me wash cars and teach yoga for a while to get real-world experience. No, you need to feel the real, present threat of being homeless. Nothing but a crappy job at Popeyes between you and the streets. Know what it's like to run down to the plasma center and sell your blood for gas money. Have to make up excuses to not go out with friends tonight because your paycheck got lost again. Put up with your friends' snide comments when you only eat half your 10-inch pizza and box the rest for home because you'd like to have lunch tomorrow. Know what it's like to have your employment put at risk by some snot-nosed rich teenage customer who decides your service wasn't fast enough. As someone who gets migraines, I wish more people experienced at least one so they know how bad and debilitating it can be. It's freaking selfish because deep down I know that I wouldn't actually wish that on anyone, but it's deeply frustrating when you're talking about it to someone or trying to call out from work and you get, "Oh, that's when you have a headache, right? Huh!" Or when they suggest taking some aspirin. Which, that crap is absolute misery to the nth degree and then some, and Excedrin migraine only works if you catch it in time. Otherwise, you're going to be curling into a pitiful ball of whimpering pain until your body either shuts itself down for a few hours and you have to start all over again. There's only one actual answer to this topic: the bitter taste of defeat. For men, unwanted creepy advances, catcalling, etc. First time it happened to me, I was like, what if Grossy McGrossface didn't leave me alone at the bar and then berated me for being worthless while all her gross friends laughed at me? Eye-opening. Visiting Auschwitz in Poland. It's an awful place to be surrounded by and is definitely not a positive experience whatsoever. But when you're there, you get a better understanding of what it was like to be trapped there. You can no longer hear those stupid, edgy jokes about Jews. It makes me shudder and feels painful to even think about that now, honestly. And that can only be a good thing in my opinion. It's just not funny. Learn from history and be very conscious of what leaders can do to their people. Most importantly, though, pay respects to those who suffered some of the greatest pain and depravity the world has ever seen. What's it like being friends with an influencer in real life? Awful. One of my best friends fell real hard into Instagram. And for a few years it was tolerable and understandable, albeit strange and annoying. Everything needed to be documented in specific ways, so lots and lots of photos, even if it took away from the moment. But the strange part was how, when it happened, she'd share things, and the captions always told a slightly different story than what actually happened. Like, just off enough for me and my other friends to say, huh, that has a weird quality to it. Fast forward a couple of years, and she gets engaged. Boom! This was the catalyst for the worst of the influencer mentality to come out. I was in the bridal party, and it was a nightmare. No gratitude, just demands. Demands for expensive trips and expensive parties, and all kinds of things that were above and beyond the means of her closest friends. And all the demands were because she had a following and had certain expectations to meet. It was really heart-wrenching to witness someone belittle their best friend and maid of honor for trying to plan a sweet bridal shower because it wasn't going to be at an expensive restaurant or art gallery. It reached its peak for me when, after the in-state wedding became an expensive destination wedding, there was the demand for an out-of-town bachelorette party a few weeks before. I was honest and said I couldn't afford the bachelorette. Mind you, I made about 1,000 sacrifices over these months to afford what I could, and I was promptly bridezillaed and told I ruined the whole experience and that I was an awful, fake, inauthentic person. It got so bad that the bridal party fractured and disintegrated. She lost 2 of her best friends. Myself and the maid of honor didn't even attend the wedding after all her behavior and blow-ups, and we've barely spoken since. All so she could have an Instagrammable wedding that would look good for the few photos she ended up sharing of it.
And true to the weird, strange, rewritten reality ways she had, she published a public apology on her blog for her followers and family that completely distorted and rewrote what happened, painted herself as the victim, and got her the sympathy points she was looking for. People really lose themselves when they create an artifice for social media. I learned a lot from her. I dated one, not super popular, but followers in the 100k range last time we spoke. I remember a lot of getting ignored and only receiving nice gifts or acts of kindness when they could post about it. Asking me to go nice places, they didn't drive, only to leave me on the beach somewhere while they took pictures. Huge strain on the relationship, especially when they started to get bigger and there was more demand for content. Maybe I'm too cynical, but I could see myself dating an awful, vapid, but attractive person over a summer to bum off the expensive trips and gifts for a few months before leaving. Am I a crap person for that? Actually, don't answer. I'll be happier that way.
She hasn't come to anything I've invited her to in 5 years because she only goes to events that further her business. Regularly says things like, "We're all using each other for something." Sometimes she texts me the exact same thing, word for word, over a couple of days, and it's obvious she just copy-pastes the same thing and sends it to all of us and then forgets who she sent it to. She still reaches out to me multiple times a year and claims I'm one of her best friends, but it sure doesn't feel like it. I've told her as much, but she just says, "This is my life now, my business comes first, and if you can't accept that, then I guess you're not a real friend."
I worked with YouTube influencers in my last job with an agency that paired sponsors with these celebrities. I basically did the grunt work like insuring hotels, plane tickets, getting coffee, running errands, and meeting with the talent to ensure they were where they needed to be, like events, conferences, trade shows, parties, or whatever. Over time, you make friends with others who are in those positions, especially when you're running errands for some entitled pseudo-celebrity. The nicest YouTubers were the animators, always calm and understanding. The worst were the family vloggers. I've met all the big ones, and I never met one that wasn't a completely different person off camera. The kids are always spoiled, and no one disciplines them, so they're running around breaking things or acting like idiots. And no one can yell at them lest their influencer parents find out. A close second is makeup YouTubers. Pretty mundane, honestly. My friend is conventionally attractive, and if you look at her social media, you'd think she were a supermodel millionaire who goes on tons of trips. She's actually chronically unemployed and has an income of less than 10k a year. Her boyfriend makes about 60k, which is enough to afford them a very nice 3.5-bedroom apartment, and she has tons of props she uses to make each room look different from day to day, so it seems like she's always in a new, exotic place. They take 2 trips a year to fun, tropical places in which she takes many photos and posts them as different places throughout the year. She's very kind, considerate, and a sparkling personality, but whenever we hang out, I tend to be a shoulder to cry on as she laments about her lack of success in life. It's quite sad, honestly, but with her creativity and personality, I think she'll achieve her dreams eventually. This is the most wholesome response I've seen in this post so far, yet it still manages to be sad. If anything, because she's actually a nice person, like you say, that actually makes it sadder than other responses I've read. It's annoying as frick. One of my buddies is constantly filming everything we do and posting it. It's to the point where people walk up to me on the street and ask me about him because they've seen me in his posts. I have no idea who they are. It dominates everything he does and has severely impacted his personal relationships. He can't keep a girlfriend, and it's clearly related to this obsession of his. He does occasionally get some cool stuff out of it, though. After pretty much kicking him out of my life because I don't want to be continually posted online, we come to an understanding that when he's about to take a pic or video, he hands me the phone so I'm not in the shot. That works okay for me. Friends with a high-profile athlete who's pretty popular on Insta. He's always on the phone and never lives in the moment. If we're doing anything fun, well, it basically didn't happen unless the world knows about it. It's just annoying. I can't imagine living for the approval or satisfaction of others. This was my ex-girlfriend. I couldn't eat before she took a dozen pictures. We went hiking and had to turn around less than a mile in, since she spent an hour taking photos and posting videos. Service connection wasn't good enough, so we went to the trail ahead. She had to post, or else people are gonna think I'm broke or depressed and they need to know I'm traveling. She lived her life through her phone. I post travel photos and have about 200 followers, 200, not 2,000 or higher. My friend somehow thought that was influencer status and decided to copy me. Except she quit her job so she could travel more and grow her brand. In 2020, she lost her apartment, her car, and still hasn't found a job, but calls herself a professional influencer all the same. Professional influencer? Jesus fricking Christ. I know a wannabe influencer. She'll reply to her own posts from her husband's account praising herself. Then she'll reply to those posts as herself thanking him. It's hilarious, like Inception for Facebook. Apparently, this is not uncommon. I frequent a gossip blog that has a handful of crackpot commenters who, savvier members claim, have created multiple accounts to start drama and argue with themselves and others. The same individual has been accused of this multiple times, and the accusers seem pretty positive about it. It's a major disruption and a pain in the butt for those of us who just go there to read the blind items and guess the celebrity talk or some standard trash. At one point, the site master had to rejigger the whole site to implement a new commenting platform so we could self-regulate. It's a shame we lost almost 10 years of historical comments with accurate, juicy details as a result. Hey, don't judge me, we all have our weird little communities, right? Ugh, fabricating workplace drama with yourself? That's enough internet for the human race, I think. Let's burn it all down. Oh wait, I need it for my job. Damn it! Anyone want to buy cassette tapes of these videos from me via snail mail instead? To be honest, it's really crap to be friends with one. I feel like I've been completely forgotten about and like I don't matter anymore. I think that's just some weird misguided jealousy, but it still hurts because I miss talking to my friend. Depending on how far down the narcissism hole you think your friend has gone versus how normal they still are, it could be worthwhile having a chat about it or sending a brief text like, "Hey, hope you're rocking your online life. I miss chilling like we used to, and I'd love to hang out off the grid sometime. Let me know if you're down." But I don't know, that could be too cringe. I mean, I threw up a little at the rocking your online life part, but it is great advice, for most of these posts actually. Sad. In the beginning, they started because they got offers from brands because they were so popular on Instagram, and it was a lot of fun for them. Now they don't ever post pictures or videos without a filter. Rarely ever like a picture on the first try, and don't you dare post any pictures of them without getting their approval for it. Imagine trying to get a group picture with all of your friends for your birthday, but having to take almost 100 shots to get that one of your influencer friend that they're happy with. Also, in the beginning, I would like and comment on all of their posts, but now that's not enough. They expect me to message it to others, share it on my stories and my page, something about the new algorithms and likes not being important anymore. I hate posting stuff to my page, but I do it anyway to be supportive. It's so tiring. They do get free things sometimes though, that they sometimes share with me. Not worth it in my opinion. My cousin is a wannabe influencer. She kept denying family photos at a birthday party, so her mum told her just not to be in pictures anymore. Haha, idiot got a reality check. So incredibly annoying. I actually ended up cutting her off because everything had to be a photo opportunity. We could never just go out to lunch or see a movie without it turning into a photo shoot. She never did anything with our friend group unless it was aesthetic. And even then, she was so focused on getting us to take photos that A, she didn't get to enjoy the activity, and B, it started bringing everyone else down because they couldn't participate either. And this sounds so petty, but she could never just show up in a t-shirt and leggings. Because photos, obviously. Like even sleepovers and movie nights had to be a big production, and sometimes you just need to stuff your face with popcorn and look like a slob. It's good for the soul. She'd also complain a lot about how hard her job was. Our friendship group at the time consisted of an EMT, 2 nurses, a teacher, and me who was juggling university, tutoring, and working retail. Like, I'm sure she had challenges and all jobs are hard sometimes, but girl, you get paid to take selfies with free stuff and show up at events looking pretty. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Mine became a horrible, self-centered bully. Exactly as fake and staged as you imagine it to be, the on-camera moments are completely non-genuine. It is, in the end, just an acting or modeling job and not their real personality. The fake laughing in photos is always so cringe-inducing for me to watch. Then the photo is taken and the smile is instantly replaced with a furrowed brow as they decide whether the pictures are acceptable. No, they're not. They hand the camera back to whoever and restart the candid laughing all over again. I sold my place to one a while ago, one of those newly green, sustainable body positivity types. Pretty much everything about what this person projects as a social media image is as fake as it turned out. It was quite a sobering experience. She is annoying. There's no other word to describe her.
I feel sorry for her because she's a person that needs attention all the time. We're not friends, but we live in the same house. Everything is fake. The attitude, the mannerisms, everything. It sounds stupid until you realize they clear close to 7 figures a year. One time we vacationed with them, and when we were out to dinner, they said to us, "1 second, we need to go and film a bit." And they went from our friends, who are calm and nice, to their, "Hey guys, we're in the beautiful south of France." Annoying people everyone loves to hate. I've got a friend with 75k subscribers on YouTube in a language other than English. It used to be about their weekend getaways with nice drone shots. It was interesting. Then gradually became about their lives. She gets her phone or camera out at sometimes random moments, which could get annoying. She got pregnant, and now everything is about the baby. Oh, that poor child. I'd hope that she's at least one of the ones that doesn't show the baby's face, but that seems like I'm asking too much for some of these people. Honestly, she's really nice. She hosted a book club in a bar I worked at and would always order wine or pretty cocktails for photos. But once everyone left, she'd sit at the bar and shoot the crap with me while drinking yard beers. My sister has tens of thousands of followers. We used to be best friends in high school, and she was my favorite sibling. I'm number 7 out of 8 kids in my family. I know my parents are crazy. Now I feel like I barely know her. It's like she's this shell of a person that she used to be. Seriously, I've never met anyone who could make me laugh as hard as she used to make me laugh. Now I just sort of want to blow my brains out when I'm around her. She's just so obsessed and fake now. It actually makes me really sad. My wife has a friend that thinks she's a Kardashian with her 80k followers and does everything for the gram. Her ex-boyfriend bought most of them, and she only gets around 50 likes per post. Not a friend per se, but my ex's sister is an influencer for beauty and makeup, with over 1 million followers on YouTube. She was so anxious and stressed all the time, horribly insecure. If she got some backlash or bad comments, she'd be so upset, was on a lot of anti-anxiety medication. And meanwhile, all of her posts are just her looking beautiful and traveling. She didn't have many friends either. That I saw anyway, just lots of fans. It looked like a terrible life. It ruined the illusion for me that their lifestyles are happy and perfect, that is, and I'm thankful for being able to see behind the curtain. One of my friends dated someone that was really Instagram famous. He invited us to his house for a Christmas party, and this was when I realized how fake social media really is. The guy didn't have the car he paraded on social media. He had leased it, taken several photo shoots with it, and then given it back. His house was in a different city than he claimed. I don't think it was for security reasons, though. He said he lived in a very rich city, but his house was in a more modest place. He asked me to send him the videos I took at the party and posted them and didn't even tag me because I didn't have enough followers. The worst part was that all the social media people at the party just kept yelling over each other trying to make the next big joke, but none of them were funny. Dude has millions of people fooled. The part about always trying to make the next big joke but not being funny is incredibly relatable. I ran with a popular crowd in high school. I was a major D-bag too, and I regret it. And we all liked to pretend we were influencers. Always had our phones out, always recording things, and constantly trying to make videos like the Vines and the 30-minute Vine compilations we'd watch. At least we had the excuse of being dumb high schoolers, but man, was it cringy. I have a friend who's recently started trying to become one. It's so dumb. She posts half-undressed photos of herself with captions that have nothing to do with the picture. She spends hours getting ready for her iPhone photo shoots and has little time for anything besides content creation. Being an influencer is pretty much against everything I care about and stand for, so I envision us slowly drifting further apart. That crap is stupid. I'm not friends with any of my influencers anymore, but I used to work in San Diego nightlife, and I had to rub elbows with a lot of these types. I'm talking 1 to 6 million follower type girls who were brought into the club as promoters, back in 2016 when 1 million followers was a huge deal. The girls themselves aren't actually that bad. Some are crazy entitled, but for the most part they're there for business, and San Diego is a small enough town that reputation matters. The worst were the sub-suckers. Other girls who had fewer than 1 million followers who hung around to try and soak up subscribers and make contacts in the industry. Think of them like small-time actors who think they're a big deal because they've got a few pilots in production. I'm not big now, but you should kiss my butt because I'm the next big thing types. These girls would literally do nothing but take pictures all night or all day depending on the club and demand free bottles, extra service, and other garbage without ever tipping. F influencers.
I went on a date with one and it was just frustrating. Pleasant enough girl, but she was on her phone a lot. I had sympathy since it's her job, but I felt ignored a lot of the time we were together. It's sad. You always watch them slowly mentally degrade. Always ends in full-blown NPD or them having literally zero self-confidence. Their goal is to meet artificial metrics in terms of likes or views or follows. For a lot of them, that's their definition of success or their goal in life, and if they're not hitting it, they've failed as people in their minds. So they go one of two routes. One is thinking that they're really not good enough and don't deserve to be liked, which leads to a lack of confidence and then becoming a shell of the person they used to be. Two is narcissism, where they come to the conclusion that they're the best person ever and no one else knows what they're talking about, and every single flaw, fault, or mistake they've ever made is someone else's fault. That sounds like a rough life to live, and I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, to be honest. Not an influencer as such, but I worked as an animator for an educational kids YouTube channel for a number of years. My boss was obsessed with views and subscriber count. A big part of one of my colleagues' jobs was spending hours trawling through all of our competitors' videos and channels, putting all of their views and subscriber counts into a massive spreadsheet. He also couldn't work out why none of his employees were as invested in the channel as he was, and why we weren't all clamoring to do huge amounts of unpaid overtime in the name of furthering the channel's growth. When I got hired, the channel had just passed 1 million subs and 1 billion views, and both those numbers doubled by the time I left. This was a few years ago, before YouTube Kids was even a thing, but kids' videos always get a huge amount of views anyway. Last I heard, he had fired all of his remaining employees and was making unboxing videos alone in his house that got hardly any views. My sister was an influencer of sorts. She was on Instagram doing bodybuilding and was sponsored by a few protein shake companies. She didn't have mega fame or anything, but did have friends in high places. She was one of those B-word popular girls in high school, and that persona carried on into her influencer career. She was very distant from her family and cut off most of her old friends. The few times she did visit, she was very selective about who could be seen with her. She moved to another city to be closer to the bodybuilding scene, building followers up as she went. She dated some guy who gave her a lavish lifestyle for a bit, then cheated on her after a few years. Probably the entire time, actually. So she moved to the other side of the country, continued her bodybuilding, but then decided she wanted to be a cop. They told her she'd never be a cop with a social media presence like that, because too easy for the media to use it against her, so she went home, deleted every account that day, and then went back. Now, she's a cop, and doing so much better in life than she ever did before. All of her old personality is gone, and I've never been prouder of her in my life. She's really nice now, and spends her days being a small-town cop in the middle of nowhere. I've driven 3 hours, hiked 1 hour so they could take a couple of photos over about 5 minutes and then whined that they were ready to go home. Sometimes they'll buy unhealthy but grammable food, take photos of them licking it, and then throw it out. I also have a friend who, when overseas, will set alarms for like 3 a.m. to wake up and post their photos from the day at the peak time back home. I haven't seen them for a while. My cousin is a moderately successful Instagram model and she absolutely hates it. She hates her fans, finds them all cringy and pathetic, hates the drama, and how PC it all is. In real life, she's very conservative and traditional. Only does it because it's the only way she can make money. She dropped out of school and endorsing products and taking pictures of herself is the only way she knows how to pay rent. In real life, she's basically the complete opposite of the happy, bubbly, ditzy girl she plays online. And we often laugh over some of the messages she receives, including proposals and women angry that their sons or husbands are following her. How do people not realize it's all an act? I mean, damn, it took all of 15 picoseconds of my girlfriend showing me people she follows on Instagram to realize these aren't authentic people living realistic lives. And I'm a frickin' moron. He was cool, but at the same time, difficult. Get him alone and he was okay, but go out places with him and he started unnecessary drama and was super emotional. I ended up not being friends with him after a convention we went to because he caused a lot of trouble for me and my friends. It sucked because I was the one who intervened and allowed him to stay, and all of my friends were super upset with him, so I felt like I allowed a lot of the issues. I hope he's doing okay though. What is the worst advice you've ever received in your life?
Don't quit your job at Walmart. You've been here for 3 years. Just 7 more and you'll be fully vested in the company.
Ugh, one thing I just remembered about that job. We had a manager who, since the time I started working there, couldn't speak above a whisper no matter how hard she tried. It had been like this for years. 2 years after I was hired, she finally found a doctor who figured out the problem. Apparently, if you're stressed out every single day for years on end, it can cause a psychogenic voice disorder. He ordered her to take 3 months off work. When she came back, she could speak normally. When I was in high school, I had a friend who was not the smartest. I remember him telling me if I didn't want to get a woman pregnant, then she should be on top so the semen can't flow up. He became a father his sophomore year.
You know, son, there's really no such thing as cheating if you aren't married. The Bible doesn't recognize any relationship that isn't bound in the covenant of the Lord. So until you're married, relationships don't really exist.
Thanks, Dad. You just indirectly explained why you're on your third marriage. Had an uncle tell me that men could be allowed to fool around in relationships as it was their impulse to have as many children as possible. And women, well, look at a man other than your husband and you're a prostitute. I have some questionable family members. I called Kids Help Phone when I was a teen to ask for advice on how to help my depressed friend. They advised I find new friends. I wish I was making this up. To clarify, the conversation was very short. I explained my friend had been struggling, depressed, and with no motivation and isolating herself from others. Along those lines, it was a while back, and I asked what I could do. The only piece of advice they gave me was, let her sort it out on her own, and find new friends. That's it. Nothing to interpret or misinterpret, I don't think. We remained friends though, and she's alright now. Get used to it, my old boss told me when my 8-hour day shift job changed to a variable 8 to 10-hour night shift. This would effectively remove me from spending time with my wife and young children. I took his advice as a catalyst to engineer the greatest adventure of my life. Transferred to a job across country, hugely upgraded my living conditions for my family. New boss completely understood the demands of a parent and adjusted my work schedule accordingly. I'm so thankful for my new boss, but I'm even more thankful for the old one, for giving me the worst advice I've ever received in my life. There you go. Kinda seemed like the first boss might have been burnt out on their own life to be that callous about yours. You deserve your best life, folks. When my marriage was on the rocks, my dad said, "Son, go out and find yourself an older woman that just wants to frick and keep your marriage. She, my wife, doesn't have to know and you'll be getting laid and the older woman will just be happy without a commitment." Thankfully, I didn't go that route and my marriage is repaired and stronger than ever today.
Oh, but the old lady who just wants to F is still lonely. Stop being so selfish.
It looks like you're using an ad blocker. Please turn it off to continue viewing this page. I mentioned in passing that my boyfriend suffered from a terrible Charlie horse in the middle of the night. My bizarre space cadet of a coworker heard this and immediately interjected, frantically explaining that I needed to get him to a hospital because this was a surefire symptom of pregnancy. She also recommended that I call the news because my boyfriend is, well, a man. I guess she thought history was about to go down. Spoiler alert, he wasn't pregnant. She also believed that cheese made outside the US wasn't really cheese. Her mindset on most issues was difficult to explain. Just have kids. You'll figure out how to afford them later. When my daughter was an infant, my wife couldn't breastfeed and my daughter couldn't digest formula very well, so I had to buy a special pre-digested formula for like $25 a can. I was at the cashier paying for the formula and the guy in front of me was gathering his things. He said to me, "When my kids were babies, I wish I knew what I know now." And I said, "What's that? What do you know?" He said, "Babies don't need formula. All they need is sugar water. All the rest is a scam." And I was like, I'm so glad you didn't know that back then. Yeah, my brother had someone tell him that babies can start eating solids 2 to 3 weeks after their birth. The coworker who told him this has 2 children. A guy at my work told me once that as long as you don't physically block the exit, it wasn't considered the unspeakable act. I had just asked how to deal with my girlfriend who wasn't upfront about her interests. Yeah, I made a note to warn all of my female friends about him. My high school guidance counselor said that I wasn't college material, and I took her advice and started the process of joining the Marines with my friends, who were also told this. My chemistry teacher at the time scheduled a substitute, personally drove me to a nearby college, and sat there with me while I spoke with admissions. Fast forward a few years, and after receiving a chemistry and chemical engineering dual degree and then going on to get a PhD in chemical engineering, I'd say that guidance counselor knew crap all.
Just listen to your academic advisor, they know what they're doing.
Thousands of dollars added to cost of education, an extra senior year, and a withdrawal on record. Seriously, don't be afraid to push back on your advisors if you're concerned about what they say or do.
Just don't fight back. Men act like that because they want to assert dominance. As soon as he realizes you've accepted his behavior, he'll leave you alone.
The hard and fast rule for any human relationship is that any bullcrap you accept early on in that relationship sets you up to get even more bullcrap in the future. Guaranteed.
I have an open door policy, so don't hesitate to see me if you have any issues at all.
I learned the hard way never to trust any boss or HR rep that says that crap. Utilizing open door policies is a damn good way to get fired for being a troublemaker. I'm having an issue at work. My boss is a major creep to every woman. Doesn't matter how old or young. My coworker and I were talking about reporting him to HR because they have an anonymous line you can call. However, HR says nothing will ever come of an anonymous tip because they need to be able to have your name and interview you. Otherwise, people would just be calling in fake information about anyone they don't like. Nobody wants to be the first one that steps up and has their name out there and get in trouble. I just got promoted to my dream position by him, so I definitely don't want to risk it. Yep, sadly enough, I've heard that in most American companies, the last thing you want to do is complain about a higher-up to HR. I hope that's flawed advice and that most of you find otherwise, but it's what I've heard. They exist to protect the company they work for.
When I was little, I told my mom that I was sad because some kids were bullying me. She said I should tell them that when they bullied me, it hurt me inside and that they'd stop. I did what she said. This was bad advice. They did not stop.
I know someone who taught her 5-year-old to tell people, "You're making me very angry." Yeah, that worked out really well.
Don't go through chemotherapy, eat this nut and berry mix instead,
said my younger sister when she visited me in hospital when I went for febrile neutropenia, which means no white blood cells and I had a fever. She also showed up claiming to have bronchitis and didn't wear a mask and full-on hugged me. Yeah, she's a piece of work. Even knowing what I do now about what it would do to my reproductive health, in short, permanent menopause at 26, I'd still go with chemotherapy 1,100%. I was going to die without it, with a 100% guarantee. I'd be dead by the time I turned 27. My life is more important than my ability to have children the old-fashioned way. I should clarify I was diagnosed with diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, co-classified with bulky disease, and was receiving chemo for it. The febrile neutropenia was a side effect of the treatment. Holistic people are the most fun, aren't they? This leaf from Tanzania will cure you of your life-threatening disease, and it's all natural. My psychiatrist told me I could stop taking the SNRI antidepressants I was on more or less cold turkey. It was technically safe, but holy crap, it was a tough couple of weeks. Partly because of unpleasant physical sensations and partly because it was the closest to actual crazy I'd ever felt.
Buy a house in 2006. It'll be the best decision you ever make.
It was the worst decision they ever made. When I found out I was pregnant with my youngest son, my mum and her boyfriend told me to abort. Not because I couldn't afford the baby or that there was something wrong with him, but because my mum was going through menopause and didn't want to be reminded that she couldn't have any more kids.
Just open another credit card. It's free money.
Coming from my friend who is in thousands of dollars worth of debt and has no idea she will eventually have to pay that off. Also, another gem. This same girl thought she would get a marketing job right out of college that would pay her $70K a year, and she wouldn't take anything less because she'd be
selling myself short.
Don't be afraid to seek help at mental health. It won't adversely affect your Air Force career. I've been turned down for 2 amazing job opportunities because of my visits to mental health. To clarify, I'm already in the Air Force. I saw mental health for depression and anxiety-related issues, and was later rejected for new jobs with the Air Force because of those visits, despite assurances to and endorsements by several providers stating that my issues had been resolved. The last couple of years of my life and career have been immensely frustrating, and it's put me in a dark place that I haven't really been able to escape since. I'm not planning to do anything stupid, don't get me wrong, but it's hard to see the proverbial light lately. I'm not giving up. I think I'm too stubborn to do that. But I've come to realize that I'm probably going to be here for a while, so I might as well make myself comfortable. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. In my final semester of college, my insanely jealous, distraught mother called me to make one last plea to get me to drop out. She went on to say, "What would you do if you had to watch helplessly as your own daughter threw her life away and became a nurse?" By the way, she married an elementary school dropout and was a bitter retail worker. She couldn't handle watching me be the first in my family to graduate from college and make something of myself, and she dealt with it by constantly shaming me. If I scored 99% on something, she complained about the last 1%. If I got 100%, she said I was stupid because I didn't earn bonus marks. We don't talk anymore, and I'm a successful nurse. As is tradition, I received the typical, "Well, I hope you still love her and talk to her. Be the better person," response that survivors of this kind of behavior often receive. If your narcissistic parents won't stop, there's nothing wrong with leaving and never looking back. Yes, even if it's your own mother. This is me being the better person and respecting myself and my children enough to not subject us to her behavior. Sounds familiar? My dad was a bricklayer and his dad was a fabric cutter. I got constant complaining every day about wasting time at school like a posh C-word, ever since I was 16 and decided to do A-levels. When I left for university, he told me I wouldn't last a month. I started practicing medicine as a doctor next summer, and he still calls me to tell me all the lads I knew on the council estate have married and had kids and have their own cars. Yeah, Dad, I know I'd have my own van by now if I was a plumber. No, Dad, I know there's nothing wrong with being in the trades or the forces. It's just not for me. Nothing like holding your children back into the exact same path as you despite their dreams lying elsewhere. Keep it up, crappy parents. A friend of mine would always get me to talk about my relationships and would somehow twist the smallest things into seeming like they were really bad, and then suggest that I should break up with them, and I'd be like, "You're right, why am I putting up with this crap?" when it could have been something completely normal. Happened with 3 girls in a row, and it was always the same stuff he said, and I just snapped out of it one day and realized that I'd been the crappy boyfriend, and the reason it didn't work was because of how I was acting after hearing all of these things put into my head. I think he was just jealous because he could never get any girls, but what a weird thing to look back on. Engineer, salaried, married with kid. Also have a master's degree and several years of experience. Vice president of the company advised me to work at McDonald's after work if I wanted to make more money. He even took out his calculator and told me how many hours I should work. That guy was fired about a year after that for bullying employees. I tried to leave but ended up staying and turned down other jobs. Not a bad place to be for now. I spoke about it to a couple of senior executives I trusted at the time. The second worst advice I ever received from the same guy, he tells me, "You have to reward people for putting in extra hours at their work. Do you know how to do that?" Me? Bonuses? He proceeded with opening a Costco-sized bag of Fig Newtons, handed me a bag, got out of his office and started distributing Fig Newtons on the manufacturing floor. This wasn't me personally, but my mum told me that we had a neighbor that used to constantly tell my dad that life insurance was a waste of money and tried to convince him to stop paying for it. Fortunately, my dad was intelligent because he died 5 years later and my family would have been completely destroyed without it. My careers advisor in high school, when I said, "I think I want to do something with computers," she said, "Have you heard of Microsoft?" Then she wrote the word Microsoft on a piece of paper and slid it across the table, and that was my careers interview over. Out of everything, this has to be the funniest one here, especially if you apply it to weirdly specific stuff. "I think I want to do something with cars." "Have you heard of Toyota?" Then she wrote Toyota on a piece of paper and slid it across the table, and that was my career interview over. Someone told me I should have kids in my early 20s so I can just get it out of the way. Your family is the only thing that will ever be there for you, not your friends, your family. And I just got excommunicated from my narcissistic, abusive family 2 days before Thanksgiving. Anything in any romantic comedy ever. Harass the woman you want with unwanted, over-the-top romantic gestures until she falls in love with you. The part that bugs me the most is how they always make the current boyfriend or girlfriend horrible. Most of the time they don't even do anything wrong. They just aren't making their significant other the center of their universe.
Stop reading. You read too much. You're going to hurt your eyes. Go watch TV for a while.
My grandma, every time she visited, while grabbing the books from my hands, it was like something off The Simpsons. She really said that? My elders had to force me to read. The advice to have children as soon as possible. 8th grade geography exam was coming up and we'd been studying the Middle East. My father had recently returned from Africa, where someone had incorrectly informed him that Israel is technically a part of Africa. He was extremely convincing. My teacher literally said, "Jesus, we've been studying this for weeks, kid." So, take a piece of sandpaper and rough your nips up before the baby comes. A coworker to pregnant me about how to feed my kid. I don't have to deal with that eventuality of parenthood, and I'm doubled over in front of my screen in pain after reading that. "Oh, go and see Jack and Jill with Adam Sandler. It's funny," said Todd from accounting. Dear God, there are no words. Did you see it? I assume Todd is dead from having tragically swallowed his own tongue during breakfast. Stop thinking about depression. There are more people who have greater problems than yours. Non-verbatim. It's like saying don't eat food when you're hungry because someone somewhere else is starving. When people told me to ignore the bullies, you don't need to fight them, but standing up for yourself is far better than taking it, internalizing it, and letting it hold you back. My college roommate, drink beer and nothing hard when you party. It fills you up so you'll throw it up before you get alcohol poisoning, and then you can drink more right away. Don't make any friends. Friends will ruin your life. I haven't made any friends and I've ruined my own life just fine, thank you very much. When I was a teenager and had acne, none of the over-the-counter acne medicine was working. My mum brought me to a dermatologist and the medicine they prescribed me was very expensive, so before buying it, my mum searched for any home remedies online. The home remedy she found was to use urine. The way to apply it was worse. My mum went to the store to buy supplies, and for over a month, I would pee into a diaper and place it on my face for 15 minutes as part of my morning routine. Worst advice I've ever taken. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, I was given a Superman cape for my birthday. I was told that it could make me fly. After a few days of not being able to fly, I began to ask people how to make it work. They advised that I needed to find somewhere high up to jump off of. So I started jumping off fences, trees, and then I was told I needed to jump off something taller. I was miserable with the school I was in and wanted to study my dream career. A friend told me that no one does what they like and I should deal with it. I didn't. I did leave and now I'm about to get a degree on the career I love. I know things will be tough, but I don't regret it. In my country, most of us are out of a job, so I figured if I'm going to be unemployed, better be at something I like. Somebody told me that girls like to be smacked around a little. Pro tip, always ask first. Schedule all of your college courses at 8 a.m., then you've got the rest of the day to relax. This works if you're a morning person. Afternoon classes were hell for me, but I loved having 8s. When you're undecided about what to do with your life and people say, do what you're passionate about or love, well, fricking thank you. Like, I'm obviously not that passionate about anything if I've got to ask this question, right? I was advised to go to Bible college and to find myself a godly husband. I didn't take that advice and instead hung out at the engineering college and married an engineer. I had a friend do this. She found a godly husband all right. 3 rehab stints later, years of physical, emotional, and verbal battering, and numerous threats, and she's just now finding the strength to divorce him. When I was fresh out of the Navy and going to college on the GI Bill, my dad tried repeatedly to get me to drop out of college. He honestly thought that pursuing a biology degree at no cost to myself was a waste of my time. It wasn't until I started my master's degree that he was finally supportive of my educational goals. He tells me he's proud of me, and when I remind him that he tried to get me to drop out, he denies it. It's funny how selective parents' memories get when you get older. They never seem to remember anything they did wrong. Just get over it. My mum, anytime I had any sort of emotional, mental, or bullying issue. Your mother was likely told this growing up, and it's the only thing she knows to say in this situation. She probably doesn't even realize it either. My high school guidance counselor told me, "You'll never make a living drawing monsters." I became one of the original artists of Magic the Gathering, created the Prototype franchise, ran various video game franchises for Warner Brothers like Harry Potter and Game of Thrones, created the Delta Green series of books which topped $440K on Kickstarter and BackerKit. These things are filled with monsters, so suck it, Miss Ehrlich. Not me, but I was there when my husband's aunts told him that he needed to be more like his cousin. Everyone knew the cousin was worthless, so it was shocking. At the time, my husband was in college and working full-time in IT, actually doing pretty well for himself, while his cousin had a job at some stadium making $12, which they all thought was great. After their little pep talk, they convinced his mum to agree. That's when I told him I believed in him and they were crazy. 20 years later, my husband is very successful, while the cousin is in prison for inappropriate conduct with minors. Seriously, his aunts were stupid C-words. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.